Truth Table News World. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday night stream. I am your humble correspondent, Armando Gonzalez. For those of you that are here new to the stream, hope you guys have had a great week. We've got, let me see, I'm going to say LDSA.
I think
Right?
that's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, LDSA.
which is actually Mr. Mike Lehmberg, former Air Force, former Army. Yeah, it's got a good reception already, too. See, studio audience is alive and well in the house. Welcome, guys. Hope you guys had a fantastic week. We have got a banger of a show for you tonight. Okay, this is basically, we're going to coattail off of last week's broadcast that we did live. And I coined this one back then, the cherry on top of the cake. We're going to be bringing you another authorized video from Laura Logan of Going Rogue with Laura Logan. You guys should go ahead and check her out. She's got great stuff. And we're going to be talking about an insider from Venezuela that's been working with us for a very long time. That's basically going to blow the lid off of not Tren de Aragua or MS-13 or, you know, all this other crap, you know, these gangs or whatever the hell they are. No, this is going to be about Cartel de los Soles. All right. And what kind of a reach this cartel has, not only around the world, but mainly, okay, in our government and our institutions. You guys need to pay very close attention to this guy, okay? Because I'm telling you, this is going to be gold, is the only way that I can put it. So first and foremost, hey, Mike is here in the house, by the way. Mike.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Hopefully. There he is, Mr. Mike. Okay. All right, so we've got MP20. Welcome to the broadcast. Loves her girl. Welcome to the broadcast. Wally's girl is here too. Also, welcome. Loves her girl says, Ghost, very interesting interview in Nino's show about God, aliens, etc. Would love to learn more. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because he had to bail this evening. Unfortunately, you guys know what he does. And something came in the 11th hour at last minute. So he had to go take care of that. Can't talk anymore about it. But he did say he'd make it up by doing a special stream between tomorrow and the weekend to continue that conversation. So if you guys are in my Discord, which I think most of you guys are here who are in here tonight, just look out for the announcements on when that special live stream is going to happen. It's going to be between tomorrow and going into the weekend. And we'll have plenty of time. Hopefully the power will be on because, as you know, we are expecting Ice-Mageddon. Okay, and we're going to get hammered here, especially where I'm at. So providing that everything is up and running the way that it should, we'll go ahead and do the stream. If not, we'll go ahead and do it at a later date. But yeah, he briefed me on that stream that he did over on Nino's, and it was very, very good. He took it right up to the edge, that I do know. And we're going to be talking a lot more about that, okay, in the coming streams because of that's where we're going to. And by the way, if you guys tune into the F.E.V.E project right here on the Rumble channel, take a look at the last one that I dropped a few days ago, okay? And it's entitled, I believe, Where Are We Headed? Right? And that will explain a lot about, aliens, God, the universe, whatever you want to coin it, humanity as a whole. And you guys will get a very, very good take on where this is going. And I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag on this one, but there's also a very interesting one that I got wind of today that I saw that has to do with Trump and the divine. I'll leave it at that. Okay. So, all right, let's go ahead and get business out of the way as usual. So if you guys are here, welcome, new to the Rumble channel. We are also simulcasting over on YouTube. So if you guys prefer to go over on YouTube and catch the stream there, I got the live chat up on screen. Welcome. But hey, click the QR code in the upper corner of your screen there if you want access to all my socials, my links, the merch store and all that stuff. By the way, let me just show this off. This is my latest t-shirt, the latest drop. Watch this. Hopefully you guys can read that. Government plus politicians equal FUBAR, right? So for any veterans out there, you know what FUBAR means, right? That means it's effed up beyond recognition for those of you that don't know. So hope you guys enjoy that. Ron Partain, what's up, brother? Welcome to the chat. Glad you're here. Bro, you have to give me a call, man. We need to chit chat. Okay, we'll do that at some point, but let's do it, please. All right. So Shield Maiden Faith over on YouTube. Welcome to the broadcast. So then click the QR code, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that are a little squeamish about that, it's basically a digital business card. You could also hit me up at https://buymeacoffee.com/TTNW. Buy me a coffee. Well, Ice Mageddon is coming, so the Cuban here loves his hot cup of Java. All right. If you prefer to go the direct route, you can hit me up on Cash App. There's the link there below. All of this is also in the QR code. Hit me up at Cash App. cash.app/$ Truth Table News World. I will appreciate any support there as well. For those of you that are interested in getting some merch from 444 Media or Truth Table News World, it's out there. This t-shirt is now available. It's out there also as well. It's a brand new drop that went up last week. You guys can just go ahead and click on the little shop button that you see there down below. Over here on Rumble side, not YouTube's. I'm sorry, but you could always scan the QR code and go there anyway. It's not there yet on YouTube. Go ahead and check out the gear that's out there, right? Any support's always appreciated, like always. So let me just go ahead and before I get into the monologue here, I'm going to go over to Mike here. And Mike, it's okay if I drop where you're from, right?
Yeah.
All right. So Mike lives in central Minnesota and boots on the ground, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Can you tell us anything on what you've seen out there lately? Anything that you've heard? Anything that you've heard that's pertinent, with the whole, ICE and Antifa stuff?
Yeah, there's been a lot of activity. I think St. Cloud's kind of quieted down a little bit, but there was a lot of things going on with that, especially with the Somali community. I have noticed. I usually make a trip to Sam's Club every once in a while, stock up on the essentials. And let's just say that it's usually about 50% Somali, 50% others, and now it's 100% others and zero Somalis, which is quite interesting. They seem to be in hiding. But protests are still going on. Unfortunately, I got a buddy who owns a restaurant in town here, and he's been getting death threats and getting told that they're going to burn his house down and calling into his restaurant and harassing the staff and whatnot. And all because he got tired of them protesting out front, and he went out and basically said what he wanted to say. And obviously, being a Marine veteran, he had a lot to say. and
Sure. Yeah.
they've been going after him for that. So nothing's really popped off extreme yet, but there's a weird tension, and I'm definitely keeping an eye on that. Other than that, it's really, really cold and windy.
Yeah, well, you live in that part of the country, man. I get it. Shield Maiden Faith over here on Rumble now too. She's doing the simulcast. Sparrow 210. Welcome to the chat. Glad that you're here. Sam Spencer, of course. Welcome to the broadcast. Ray C, hi, how are you? Man, I just love you guys are all here today. You guys are in for one hell of a show today. You really, really are. For those of you that are popping in right now, I said it in the beginning of the chat. Ghost had to take a small sabbatical. I gave him shit about it. He had work come up, and I'll leave it at that because we're just in that window right now, folks. So he'll make it up to me. We're going to do a special custom stream late, either between now or the weekend, like I said earlier in the beginning, for those of you coming in late, provided that the power is still on here because of Ice Mageddon. So stay warm. Anyway. All right, Mike, thanks for that, brother. Okay, so here's what I got lined up for you guys tonight. The monologue is going to be a little lengthy. I want to give you an update because the video that I'm going to play for you guys tonight is going to tie into what I'm going to talk about, which is basically Venezuela, Cuba, and yes, the United States of, or should I say now transitioning to for America. Hint, hint. Okay. and we're going to be blowing the lid off and exposing the deal behind Cartel de los Soles. You guys are going to get a real understanding on how deep these tentacles go and how far they reach. All right, so we're going to go with that. So that, I believe that is going to be about an hour long. So hopefully we won't do a marathon tonight, but if we happen to go there, we will. And then we'll take some questions from you guys also as well. So as I read this, I'm going to digress over to Mike here just to get some feedback from him. So I want to start out with this one tonight. So this is coming from my sources down in the southern part of the Florida, and also from 90 miles south of Key West. I do have people down there too as well. So this is about Cuba. So Cuba approves plans for the transition to a state of war. Some of this will be comical, some will not, right? So bear with me. All right, so Cuba's National Defense Council approved the plans and measures related to the so-called transition to state of war. Okay, you guys get that? Transition to the state of war. According to a report by Cuba Debate, which means Cuba Debate, as part of the activities marking National Defense Day, the decision falls within the official concept of the war of the entire people, aimed at preparing state structures, territories, and defense forces for scenarios considered high risk. Okay, now, the statement does not detail specific actions, nor does it formally declare a state of war, but it does raise the tone of institutional discourse. Although the Cuban legal framework provides for this type of defensive planning, the announcement comes at a complex moment, marked by external tensions, international pressure, and deep internal crises that affects the population of their daily lives. Now, the emphasis on wartime concepts reinforces the narrative of resistance promoted by the government, while at the same time generating uncertainty about the practical scope of these measures and their possible impact on the civilian sphere. All right, so I'm going to pause there for a moment. All right, obviously, Mike, you can tell just by that so far that tensions are pretty high, right?
Oh yeah.
They're starting to feel a pinch, especially with Venezuela. Now, for now, the authorities have not specified whether the approval of these plans will lead to immediate changes in the country's routine, leaving the announcement as a political sign. Yeah, a political sign. That's a heavy one. But for now, the authorities have not specified whether the approval of these plans, are going to lead to civil unrest, or if it's going to affect, the way that they're governing things. So let's open up with that one first. All right.
Well,
So what's
I was
that?
going to say, I thought I already saw some videos from Cuba of people kind of getting a little antsy down there.
Well, that's the problem. People are getting antsy down there, but remember, you cannot say anything out in public. They frown upon people. Let's say you have tourists, is the way I'll call it, even YouTubers that come from Spain, they come from England, who have an understanding of some Spanish, and they go down there just to film it, the old classic cars that you see in Havana, the sights and all that stuff. And they're very sheepish about getting videoed, especially if it's going to go on YouTube, where the majority of that content does go there. They want to be blurred out. They don't want to be recorded because they have the fear of the government or a narc or something like that says, oh, hey, I saw so-and-so talking bad about the government over on YouTube. They're done, right? They go to jail or they get executed. So they're very, sheepish about that. But the general sentiment off camera is they hate it. They love America. They want America to come in there. They want to be free. They want to be liberated, but they tiptoe and they dance around all this stuff. So that's just a common thing. Now, for most of you who are new here, Um, for those of you that are new here, especially over there on the YouTube side, or maybe here in the channel, I've noticed a few names I haven't seen before. I'll give you just a very, very brief background on me. So I was born in Cuba, and, I wrote this form from memory, and from the pain of seeing an entire country forced to survive in a reality that cannot be sugarcoated, basically. You got misery, material abandonment, hunger in disguise, endless blackouts, ruins, lines outside to do whatever it is that you need to acquire, grocery stores and whatnot. Hopefully you can find something to buy, right? And hospitals without resources and families torn apart. Okay. So you guys get it. This is not a rough patch. It is the result of bad governance, sustained for decades by control, fear, and lies. So today, the Cuban government is going through the most vulnerable moment in their entire history. The revolution that triumphed in 1959, and that since then has not allowed free, plural, and competitive elections. They became militarized and involved in a surveillance state administered as a dictatorship. So the board suddenly changed, right? The Western Hemisphere is changing. That's the board, right? The operation by the United States, which culminated in the capture and extradition of Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, sent a message that Havana understood instantly. When Washington decides to move, it can do so quickly, decisively, and without asking permission. Although the other side, the left, will contest that. You didn't go through Congress to get an approval, and you didn't ask permission to do this and that. Well, guess what? Obama droned freaking civilians to death. Obama droned, over in Lebanon, right? He never went through any congressional oversight. He never asked for permission. He just went out there and did it, and nobody said a peep. No one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the hypocrisy, Mike, right, is like very large here, right? They don't give a shit, as long as they're in power. However, the if you're on the right hand side, oh my God, if you fart the wrong way, impeach him. It's too stinky. We can't have that, right?
Yeah,
Steve.
they just tried to pass the resolution today, I believe, to try to rein in Trump's war powers in Venezuela. It failed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, look, you got to look at it from this point. Who were the ones that instituted their oil industry down there?
That was
Chevron,
the
Shell,
Rockefellers.
Mobil, right? Citgo, which was / Venezuela, with Maduro thing. But anyway, those are leases that were authorized, right? You got to get land leases to drill,
Mm-hmm.
the machinery, drilling, the extraction, all that stuff, right? If you lease it, it belongs to whom? Not Venezuela. It belongs to America, American oil, right?
Yep.
So basically, from Trump's understanding is they stole that. When Maduro came in, he said, "The hell with those leases. This is ours now. Screw America. But we're going to deal with China and we're going to deal with Russia instead, and whoever else, Cuba. There you go."
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that basically, and then his indictment back from 2020, right? So was wanted because he's a criminal, right? This had nothing to do with, we're just going to invade and take over the country, blah, 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 blah. But, he just liberated an entire country. But anyway, let's just go with this, even harsher for the regime, the supposed protectors do not always protect. They can issue statements, condemnation, speeches, but that doesn't mean that they're willing to put themselves on the line, wield real power or pay true costs for sustaining their allies. For Cuba's rulers, the lack of concrete response from China and Russia has been chilling. That translates into a new and terrifying feeling, strategic loneliness, right? So without a reliable umbrella, without a power truly willing to guarantee its survival, and with Venezuelan support wavering, the leadership in Havana understands something it long avoided accepting. It is alone. And in politics, feeling alone is not a metaphor. It is a countdown of what's to come. So added to this scenario, it is a factor that multiplies basically into fear. Trump's unpredictability. In the regime's internal calculations, the end could depend on a mood, on a decision that does not require months of preparation, but could be made any day at any hour. And that's where we're at. All right. And that for a government accustomed to controlling time, rationing repression, and administering fear is a gigantic vulnerability. You agree with that, Mike?
Absolutely. I think with us being able to, root out Iran, China, a lot of the supporters of a nation like Cuba, things are looking a little dire for them, and it's going to cause some pretty funky issues. But I would just hope that they wouldn't try to do something rash on their end to make the things worse. But yeah.
Well, yeah, and you know what? You brought up a great point there about making things rash or doing something, pretty stupid. And I'll get to that in the next piece that I'm going to cover here, because it is a very good point, and I'll tell you why. Okay, it's pretty cool. So, for a government accustomed to controlling time, rationing repression, and administering fear, is a gigantic vulnerability. It no longer controls the clock. The regime's fragility is not yet freedom, but it can open a historic window. And that window exists while the real country, the one of blackouts, empty tables, mended clothing, garbage dumps, and collapses of people who fall asleep in the heat and wake up without hope. It continues to pay the price for a ruling elite that has never had to be held accountable. Never, right? So this is the most vulnerable moment for the Cuban government. And when a dictatorship feels vulnerable, it becomes clumsier, more paranoid, more violent, like you said, but also more fragile at the same time, right? So this is the hour of clarity for those who want a free future for Cuba, and the dark hour for the executioners, right? Because they are, I'm telling you, they are just hanging on for dear life. They really, really are. Okay. So yeah, you nailed it on that one there, Mike. So I have some sources of mine that basically informed me with this report, and this came from most of it. Actually, this one actually came from the island itself. So let me see if I can. There we go. So the big culprits are packing their bags, as forecasts say. Hurricane Trump will make landfall in Cuba. Okay, Hurricane Trump. I like the way they put that. This is the actual report, and I had to translate this.
That's awesome.
It's weird, but anyway. So amid the terminal crisis facing the communist and narco-terrorist Cuban dictatorship, where basic food staples, medicines, transportation, gasoline, electricity, and hope itself are lacking, forecast that the conditions are in place for a major social explosion, for massive nationwide popular or protest are becoming increasingly certain and widely accepted. All right. The historic events that culminated in the extraction, capture, and imprisonment of Nicolas Maduro have been, for the regime, like an earthquake that has cracked the very foundations of the system. Not the same, but similar to the collapse of the Soviet Union. It is not only about oil and the money from medical missions. With the loss of Venezuela, the regime loses its principal ally and economic guarantor. And there is more: the easy defeat and liquidation of the Castroist Praetorian Guard that supposedly protected Maduro is a hard blow to the prestige and legend of the professional Cuban elite troops. The Cuban elite troops. Let that sink in for a moment too, right? So even a greater dilemma has been how to explain the duality and revolutionary morality that could digest the fact of burying 32 of its men with military honors. Right? I saw photos of when they got their 32 individuals back into the country. They were all hauling like little shoe boxes out of the airplane.
Yep.
They freaking pulverized these
That
guys.
was awesome.
It was like little shoe boxes. They're coming out with little tiny boxes, right? So anyway, I found that kind of funny. So while everyone knows, they were killed by orders of the United States government, yet graciously allowed the U.S. Charge d'Affaires to distribute its own initiative and freaking cursor and throughout the country, boxes of food and basic necessities, right? Even more embarrassing is that the tough guys of the political bureau and the bigwigs of the puppet government lacked the nerve to expel all members of the U.S. mission, close the embassy, and sever diplomatic relations with the country that liquidated 32 of their officers and soldiers just some 17 days ago, right? So it's known that Raul Castro and the elderly bozos of the historic group of the Moncadistas, so Cuartel Moncada was basically a huge fortress that was named Moncada over on the eastern side of the island when the revolution came to an uprise, right? So that's what Moncadistas means. So they want to remain in control of the government, but practical survival-minded people in the face of the forceful policies of Donald Trump and Cuban-American Marco Rubio, they are panicking and have prepared a plan B in case things get tangled and they must urgently leave the country to save their heads and the millions of dollars they hold through international frontmen. Okay? You guys are feeling this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Billions of dollars. Gee, I wonder where that money is being held. That's an interesting question. Let me go to the chat here momentarily. So, anybody new? CS May, my AJ, welcome. Love the flag waving there, man. Welcome to the broadcast. Bum on the bus. Sorry I'm late to the party, but I made it. Hey, man, better late than never, right? I love that. Steve is here. Welcome, Steve. W792K. Sam Spencer, of course. Let me see. Totalitarians are always holding on for dear life because when the people find the courage to rise up, the regime is going to be outmanned. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's not. Yes, though says the voting machines. Yeah, let's not forget those either. That's already been somewhat taken care of, in my opinion. But
Yeah, and back to the bodies and boxes. If nobody has gone out there and listened to the translation from that Venezuelan guard, go listen to it. It is amazing how little effort we had to put into that.
yep,
And I think the guard said that there was approximately 20 of our tier one assets. And I can't remember, Armando. What did he say for their numbers? It had been about 200.
20 of their tier one assets, going close to 200 of what they had, not counting the 32 that were surrounding Maduro. Okay, which was a combination of Cuban special forces that got recoined from the Black Berets to the Black Wasps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Las Avispas Negras, right? They smoked these people, according to that guy, to that guard. He says 300 rounds per minute coming out of their rifles. 300 rounds per minute. Let that sink in. And then massive headaches, felt like some sort of acoustic wave or stuff like that, nosebleeds, and then basically just absolute collapsing on the floor. Right?
That's incapacitated them before they could even do anything.
Exactly. That's not new tech. That's old tech called Havana syndrome. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the new stuff, remember Trump saying at one point in the press conference, oh, let him try, let him do this. We have secret weapons too. That was one of them. Okay.
Yep.
They've managed to use that weapon, okay, like a direct energy weapon, but something that you can carry by hand. Let that sink in.
Amazing. And I'd like to see what other things they got lined up for other places like Cuba.
they're gonna keep it secret, man.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you know, a lot of us here that are in that know, right?
Because they're
It's
not going to roll into if they do any sort of incursion into Cuba like they did for Maduro and Venezuela, it's not going to be the same, and the tools are not going to be the same, the tactics are not going to be the same, and I'd be curious to see how that all work out.
yeah, for Steve, was this verified? Yes, it was. That I can tell you honestly through what I'm reading here now. Money Woman 11 from down under in Australia. Welcome to the broadcast. Yeah, brilliant operations for sure. So all right, so let me just finish this thing off here. All right, so according to this version that I was dropped, okay, confirmed by reliable sources in international intelligence and by some foreign correspondents, the dictatorship has set in motion an emergency protocol and warmongering rhetoric on one hand, while on the other, it negotiates with envoys from Washington and tries to buy time. Remember, Trump gave him, hey, if you want to make a deal, make it now, but you're running out of time. So far, I don't know if a deal has been made. Was not given that information, but they are running out of time. And based on this report that I'm reading here right now, they are already taking countermeasures, which indicates that they're not going to make a deal, right? So they're always searching for lifelines. You know, they have devised a plan B under which several larger passenger aircraft, listen to this, have been strategically positioned. Two Russian Ilyushins and a Falcon and a French Airbus with long flight ranges and large passenger and cargo capabilities in case of an action by Delta Force, a nationwide popular uprising, or a successful coup in the barracks, where saber rattling and covert movements are known to exist among democratic segments clandestinely present within the military ranks. So they got issues internally. So my source stated firmly, quote, a very large part of the resistance forces will drop weapons and gladly surrender without issues, like they did in Iraq, remember? They've known that their current weapons in all categories are mid 1950s Russian and Chinese. Why did I lose my crap? Yeah, Russian and Chinese. Sorry about that. Russian and Chinese AK-47s, and don't stand a chance going up against Delta Force because they know how Venezuela went down. I mean, we at this point, when they do get that, we don't even bother sending in Delta Force. We might as well send a squad of a good team of rednecks, to take care of business and just call it good. That's all.
Yep.
That's all you need.
It doesn't need much to tip, I don't think.
Nah, take some natty lights down there, cases of it, some shotguns, and just, put them down and then drink some beer. And when the Marines roll in there or Delta says, party's over, pal.
You might as well go back home.
Go home. Yeah. Because that's where they're at. So one of the Russian Ilyushins is located at the Playa Baracoa military airport near the mansions where Ramiro Valdez, Miguel Diaz-Canal, the acting president, and other high officials of the tyranny lived luxuriously in Havana, right where General Ochoa and his companions were executed. The second Ilyushin is stationed and ready at the military airport of the former Division 50, near the famous Mangos de Baracoa in the center of Province of Oriente. Now, Province of Oriente is basically on the eastern side of the island, very close to Gitmo. And here they're going to say about that. So the fourth aircraft, a French Airbus, is at the Uraguanas military airport in Guantanamo, near Santiago de Cuba. Okay, very close to Gitmo, where the elderly Raul Castro frequently resides. So a decrepit general without battles who once surrendered at Moncada without firing a shot. That's a real piece of shit. So these aircraft are primarily guarded by elite troops, with pilots always on standby who rotate every 6 hours to maintain the effectiveness of the plan and the immediacy required in an emergency, right? So they're geared up and they're ready to book. Now, you might ask where? Well, my source tells me the destination of these escape flights is unknown, although some wager that Spain, South Africa, Russia, or Turkey are among the favored countries. Key ones that actually stand out. So sooner rather than later, the inevitable collapse and implosion of the dictatorship in Cuba will come. And Cubanology experts and the world's main foreign ministries agree that the domino of major changes toward democracy and freedom has already been set in motion and that it's coming. Hurricane Trump is blowing hard with hurricane force winds near the lighthouse of El Morro in Havana. Change and the tsunami of freedom are inevitable. Thoughts?
Well, obviously they're preparing. They got pilots on 6-hour rotational flights. They know it's coming. I think the Treasury should be watching for wired funds leaving the country here. I'm sure that's probably happening too. Kind of interesting about the Spain or Turkey as a destination. I could see Russia. I could see somewhere down in South America, but those two are quite interesting to me. But then
Yeah,
again, the Ayatollah, they're in exile in France, and we let that happen. So
correct. Correct. Absolutely correct. A funny thing too, now that you mentioned that, I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity, because I had to really dig into it to see if this was true or not. Okay, but apparently I was told, actually Ghost is the one that told me, that yeah, it is correct. It wasn't, a Photoshop or an AI, whatever the hell it is. In the Oval Office, a picture was taken of Trump obviously sitting at his desk. I don't know if he was with press corps or whoever it was that he was with, but behind him was a large poster on an easel, uh, showing a map of the Western Hemisphere. Now, get this: Greenland, Canada, obviously us, Venezuela, and Cuba.
yep,
One big American flag. Let that sink in, right?
yep.
Venezuela, wow, could become a state. Cuba could become a state. Greenland, already there before even, Davos happened. He already has this gamed out and mapped out. Today, I also got wind that the territory of Alberta is now taking signatures, okay, to secede. Let that sink in also as well. And there are other ones, 7 in total, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that are in the process of doing the same thing. So what happens? All of the ones that are actually signing these petitions are the ones that have the most abundance of energy, not to mention wheat also as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. I think that the boys in Ontario are, shaking in their boots right now,
Apparently
especially.
represented. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go, continue.
I was going to say, yeah, apparently there's been representatives of Alberta that have had meetings with the State Department, I think on more than one occasion. So it is definitely not just a thought. It sounds like it's probably more likely than not, but we'll have to see it all works out.
Yeah. The other thing that struck me too, also as well, and he put this, he basically bitch slapped freaking Carney over at Davos, you know, because
Hmm.
of the whole deal with hey, yeah, China, come on board, man. Let's partner up. Let's do this and let's do that and blah blah blah. And then I don't know, all of a sudden after that, when Trump announces the peace commission, Vladimir Putin, the bad guy, right?
Hmm.
Freaking contributes $1 billion to Trump's peace plan. It's out there on X. Look for it. Look for it and listen to it. Okay. Now he's supporting Trump. So was he really the bad guy all along? I beg to differ. China,
Mainstream media would like you to think that.
yeah. I think about that, right? Now he's meeting with the dancing Zorba again. Trump is to finalize the deal in Ukraine. Okay. He's getting it done, ladies and gentlemen. Trump is getting it done. He really is. You know, now you got the leader, the head guy, the top guy of freaking NATO. Oh, man, blowing smoke up Trump's ass. Oh, yeah, this is good. This is good. We like it. Yeah, we're on board. Greenland, sure, here you go. Right? With
And they
his,
did it 180 pretty quickly.
well, think about this, bro. With the offering $100 billion to the Danes, right? That wipes out their complete deficit. And then he's going to give $100,000 to Greenlanders each? You think that they don't want America in there?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of resources there for them to be prosperous, and I think especially with what's been going on regarding Russia and China and their kind of incursion in that area. I think again, if you put it down to a vote, I think a majority of them would actually be all for it. I think they'd like a little bit of protection, and obviously, if we provide infrastructure for mineral extraction, whatever. I mean, we're not there to screw them over, pardon the French, but you're going to get some sort of cut for providing that. And I think in all, it'd be a fantastic relationship, and I think they'd understand that.
Well, think about it. The three things that I mentioned on the last stream when you were here, right? There's three things that Trump he said it at Davos. I don't want to invade. I don't want war. I'm not taking anything by force. What are the three things that number one? Well, he campaigned on it. Now he's delivering. Basically shocked the shit out of the entire planet. Okay. Commerce, trade, and peace. It's a win-win for everybody. Right? A win-win for everybody. And that's what he's doing. Why do you think look, you're George Soros, you're that other German mummy over there or wherever the hell he's from, Klaus Schwab, okay? His time is up, man. It's time to retire. It's a new world, it's a new game. Okay? We are getting out of the game, okay, that we did not create. The money idiots did, okay? They know every trick and every out and every trap door and every whatever you want to call it to continue the game. So what do you have to do? You have to reinvent and create a new game. And that's what Trump has done.
And I think that's what he expressed at Davos, along with everybody else that came with him. It was amazing listening to some of those guys talk. Basically talking trash about the World Economic Forum right in front of their faces. I don't think it gets any better than that.
Yeah, the art of the deal. Now, SM Grandel 1644 says here, China should never be trusted. Agreed, 110%. They should never be trusted. But what if I told you that behind the scenes, China has their hand in this whole, commerce, let's get it done because their economy is in the fucking toilet, whether you choose to believe me or not. Okay? Ghost and I will touch a little bit more on that in a future broadcast. Okay? I'll put it to you like this. There is a certain clan over in China, the royal ones, right? That could have a foothold in China's future again because they're not down with the commies. There's no business there. There's no security there, right? It's just not. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Can they be trusted? Absolutely not. No way in hell at all. We have a bigger problem here. And this is going to segue now into the Logan video, which I'm going to play for you. Exposing Cartel de los Soles, right? There's something else at play here. The money people, the internal problems that we have in our administration, current administration right now, that is beginning to slowly get weeded out, right? It's going to be a long process. It's going to be difficult. Yeah, we haven't seen any handcuffs yet. We haven't seen any major arrests yet. The Clintons got indicted. Are they going to show up? Not that it would matter anyway, because, they held, what's his name? What was the name of our old AG under Obama? Eric Holder. He was found in contempt of Congress. He showed up and they gave him a pass. Of course, it was their DOJ, so whatever. Could the Clintons get a pass if we don't get rid of the garbage in the DOJ right now, the corrupt ones? they'll probably get a pass. If they change it, you never know, right? We'll see,
Mm-hmm.
right? Look at this other idiot today that got called up, the attorney, the Russia hoax PP tape guy, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
This guy was lying through his freaking teeth, right? Lying through his teeth. And everybody saw that. Well, it's more exposure. That's why you continue lying. It's okay. We'll catch up with you. Don't worry about it. Steve says here, didn't they drop the contempt on the Clintons? I don't know, Steve. I don't know. Maybe they did, in the last few hours or so. I'm not aware of that, so I can't confirm that. I don't know.
They did, from what I heard. But
they?
who knows what will come from that? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever the case may be, all right, their house of cards is starting to crumble. It just is. You got to believe that. Now, that does not mean that we are not going to be facing challenges. Steve, you know this. Okay? You know this. It's confusion, distractions, and what have you. Okay? Because these layers go very, very deep. You're right. The guys that are really in control of stuff and playing this game they reside in a completely different realm. You don't know who they are. You don't know their names. You know nothing, right? And it's, the Rothschilds, the freaking Rockefellers. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, those are the known ones. But there are players in that game that no one knows who they are for a reason. That is the golden nugget that needs to be acquired. Okay? It could pop off at any minute now. Minnesota's in play. And you're from there, Mike, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probabilities from what I gathered last night is in the high 90s of that's the trigger. That's where it's all going to pop off. Number 2 is Michigan, and it's around 65%. We don't know where. Could be Dearborn, could be Detroit. Who knows? All right. And that one on Michigan has been is unverified, but Minnesota definitely verified. It's going to pop off there at any minute. And let's see what happens from that. Hell, this winter storm that we're having right now that's affecting damn near half the country east of the Mississippi, right? You remember this quote? Never let a good crisis go to waste. There you have it, right?
Sounds like a good opportunity.
Good opportunity, right? I'm just saying. I don't know. Nobody knows. I don't have that crystal ball, right? Nobody does. All I'm saying is just prepare. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Keep saying that. So now, let's go ahead and go over to this video. I want you guys to get a really good understanding and a grasp, okay, on who Cartel de los Soles really is and how deep this goes, okay, and the effects that it has not only globally, but more importantly, in our government. All right, so let me go ahead and share the screen up here. Bum, 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 bum. Go ahead and cue this up for you. And there we go. All right, guys, here we go. You guys do me a big favor and roll me a 5x5 if the audio and the video come through. Laura Logan does her own ads, okay, and it's her talking. So what I'm going to do is if it comes to one, I'll just let it play, or probably, maybe fast forward a little bit. I may just go ahead and let it play. It doesn't matter. It's just her. Probably buy gold and silver, which is a good information anyway. But it does not have the stupid ads like YouTube does. And I will be pausing the video from time to time just to get some reaction from Mike and just scan the chat here to see if anything is good out there that I can maybe drop for you. Video is about an hour long, just like the last one does, but this one is really going to make you think. So let's go ahead and kick this off. And here we go. Hold on.
Most Americans are not familiar with, but it is one that you are definitely not going to forget after you hear what he knows and what he's been doing for the past, basically for all of his life, for the past some 21 years since 2005, investigating transnational corruption, national security issues, and intelligence matters. But what makes Martin the man of the moment, this moment in Venezuela, is his work working with U.S. agencies to investigate Cartel de los Sols, which is the main cartel in Venezuela, and of course, Nicolas Maduro. And Martin has spent the better part of the last 10 years working on the indictment for Maduro and working with multiple U.S. agencies, but primarily with the DEA Special Operations Division. So, Martin, thank you so much for making time with us. I know there's a lot at stake right now. You're rushing from one thing to the next, but it is very important. Americans, our media has betrayed us for so long. The country was so focused on bringing down Donald Trump and fake news stories about Russia collusion that never happened and an insurrection that was really a setup to cover a stolen election and all of that. And people don't understand how many of these things directly relate to the work that you've been doing, investigating transnational criminal organizations, cartels, otherwise now terrorist organizations under U.S. law, and how all of these things come together. So and then for a lot of people, the indictment of Nicolas Maduro and of course the recent action came as a real surprise because Maduro's been indicted for years, but nobody ever acted upon that until now. So it would be a great place to start would just be understanding what your role has been in the Nicolas Maduro indictments.
Laura, I've been working, as I mentioned to you earlier, since 2005 on doing investigations that were related originally to the Venezuelan regime, who later became known as Cartel de los Soles. So for the last 21 years of my life, I've been putting all my effort on investigating. I started my career investigating the presence of the Iranian regime in Venezuela. So that's how I started all this work. I was focusing on what was the nature of the relationship that Iran has with Venezuela and the financial world. So after that, we started investigating the next things that was connected to Iran, which was Hezbollah, and the connectivity of Hezbollah into the drug trade coming out of Colombia via Venezuela. And then after that, the presence of Hamas. And after that, then the drug trafficking that ended coming into the United States. So that's how one thing was taken to another, to the next. And then around 2008, I started working with a DEA SOD out of Chantilly, Virginia. So I got recruited by them when I was briefing actually the U.S. Congress on the Iranian Hezbollah threat in Latin America. And they come to that office, to that conference, and they saw my presentation. And at the end of that, they asked me if I can have a meeting with them. And then they invite me to join their work. So that was around 2008. And there was a program named Cassandra, which was actually tracking the Hezbollah connection in Latin America with drug cartels, Mexico, Colombia, and other part of the continent. So that was how we started. That then Cassandra project got canceled by the Obama administration for no reason in the middle of the best moment of that project. And the only thing was left was the Venezuelan investigation. So the bilateral unit of SOD, Special Operation Division, decided to focus on this. So there was one prosecutor from Southern District, New York. His name is well known now, Emil Bove. Emil Bove, later on, after he left DOJ, became president's lawyer in New York on the case that one of the cases that New York throw on the president of the United States, and he became his lawyer. Then he became the number 3 in DOJ in the second Trump administration, and now he's a federal judge in DC. So Emil was the person who actually indicted Nicolas Maduro, was the person who built the indictment. And Emil was working with SOD. And the agent, the principal agent on SOD was Sandalio Gonzalez, who retired from DA and now is a person that I'm sure you will like to have him in your program sometime soon, because he has a unique insight of the legal process. He was in the other side of the table. I was in the outside. He was in the inside. And I was bringing the witnesses. So my role was primarily focused on recruiting potential witness. So we conduct more than 500 interviews over all those years. And out of those 500 interviews, we recruit 100 of witnesses. And they were not only for Nicolás Maduro. Nicolás Maduro actually came a few years later. The original target was Hugo Chavez, who was Nicolás Maduro's predecessor. And all the focus was on what Chavez was building. So we can talk, if you want, about the genesis of Cartel de los Soles.
Yes.
While the global financial elite has been secretly accumulating wealth through cryptocurrency, ordinary Americans have been systematically excluded. And today I want to tell you about Block Trust IRA, because they're bringing crypto wealth to everyday people. And how are they doing it? Well, they're using advanced AI technology, which breaks the stranglehold to share, buy, and platform for protect us just last year.
Cartel of the Suns.
Visit LaraLoganCrypto.com. That's LaraLoganCrypto.com for financial freedom.
In fact, that would be very helpful if you could explain exactly what is Cartel de los Soles. Cartel of the Suns.
Yeah.
And what you know about them.
So I will describe Cartel de los Soles as a very unique cartel, because most of the cartels, if not all of the cartels that you have in the world and the drug trafficking business, are criminal organizations started on the street. Few guys got together, decided to start moving drugs, and et cetera, and then ended up being a big cartel like Cartel de Sinaloa, Chapo Guzman, or Medellin cartel with Pablo Escobar in the 80s and the 90s. Cartel de los Soles was created for political motivation. And how we know that? Because when we start recruiting members of the regime, and there was one in particular member of the regime that was very, very important in this investigation. That person was the person that used to be Chavez's body man. Not the bodyguard, the body man. The person who was the shadow of Hugo Chavez for 13 years. And I will be careful with revealing names of specific people, of witnesses, for reason that you and your audience will understand. But
because their lives would be at risk, yes, right? They'll be killed.
And other family. As long as the cartel is still in control in Venezuela, we have to be incredibly careful. One day I will come back here and name those heroes, those anonymous heroes that actually help the U.S. government to understand the nature of these criminal enterprise. So this person in particular was the first one who come to us, sit with us, and said, listen, this enterprise, this criminal enterprise was created under the orders of Cuba back in 2004. Cuba, Fidel Castro went to meet with Hugo Chavez and said, we have the need to help the FARC in Colombia to fight the United States. So the United States was helping the Colombian government under President Álvaro Uribe Vélez, a very strong conservative, amazing man, to fight the FARC. And in fact, he defeated militarily the FARC.
And by the FARC, you are talking about the guerrillas in Colombia.
The communist guerrilla in Colombia. So they come back from the 60s when the Soviet Union with Cuba were funding all those movements through Latin America, in Honduras, in Salvador, in Guatemala, in Venezuela, in Colombia, and other countries. So
yeah, and the U.S. through 7th Group Special Forces and other programs worked very closely with Southcom, worked very closely with the Colombian government under Uribe, and really professionalized the forces. Colombia was Plan Colombia they used, right? It was transformed. The FARC came under enormous pressure. And then the Colombian government ran a series of campaigns encouraging FARC guerrillas to come out of the jungles. And really the FARC were in a lot of trouble. Yes. Their power had been pretty much decimated.
Correct. So that the FARC, actually, the Colombia guerrilla was the only guerrilla from the 60s and the Soviet Union era that survived after the Soviet Union.
Mhm.
And the reason that's because of the drug business. When the
Yes.
Soviet Union disappeared, they remain in control of the cocaine production. But what the Cubans did, because the biggest narco of the Western Hemisphere are the Cubans. They've been always involved since Pablo Escobar in the drug trade, but they always do it in a way that they wash their hand and left other to get the blame, and then always get away with this. So when this person came to us, and it was a body man for Hugo Chavez, he said, I was in the meeting with Fidel, came to Caracas and instruct Hugo Chavez, you need to do this because we need to defeat the Americans in Colombia. And the only way we can accomplish this is we make the FARC financially stronger. And if we do that, we need to help them to move the drugs through Venezuela. Venezuela and Colombia share probably 3,000 miles of border, unprotected border, and the drugs flow in and out. But until now, Venezuela was a petro state, not a narco state, because we produce oil. So when that happens, Hugo Chavez gave instruction to his former head of military intelligence, Hugo Carvajal Barrios, who is now in a federal prison in
In the United
New York,
States.
extradited years.
7th District of New York, correct?
Yes, he's in the same prison of Nicolas Maduro today. So he instructed his head of military intelligence to assist the government to help the FARC. And when this occurred, the FARC started moving drugs through Venezuela with the help of the military. That's how Cartel de los Soles was born. Why? Because the military started realizing how lucrative, how profitable was this business, how much money you can make. And instead to let the regional narcos from Colombia to keep control of the business, they start becoming the distribution hub of cocaine of the world. So they start taking cocaine from Colombia, but at the same time, they start taking cocaine from Bolivia too, where you have a very, and that's what is interesting, when you look into every major producer of cocaine in South America, all of them are communists. Evo Morales in Bolivia, he's a communist who took over Colombia. And Rafael Correa in Ecuador, he's a communist who was hosting all the production in the forests of Ecuador. In Peru, was less than Colombia, than Ecuador and Bolivia, but also was a left movement who was hosting the production of cocaine. So this all go along is a marriage between criminal enterprise and ideology. The left ideology. And one ultimate goal was poison the street of the United States, poison the American kids. So you will help the FARC to fight the United States Army, the 7 group, helping Colombia to fight with them. And at the same time, we're going to make sure we flood Mexico with cocaine so the Mexican cartels can distribute it inside the United States. And we can never defeat the United States by a conventional warfare, but we can do a hybrid warfare. And the hybrid warfare was, let's bring cocaine. Years later, fentanyl become the other drugs of attack against the U.S., and we can talk about that later on. But that's how Cartel de los Soles was born, around 2005. So around 2005, the army of Venezuela, and the name Cartel de los Soles come because the generals in Venezuela do not have stars. They have suns.
On their uniforms.
So it was in their uniform. So there's 3 sons general or 4 sons general, which are the ones who were controlling. Why Cartel de los Soles is different? Because it's not run by Chapo Guzman or Pablo Escobar, who was just a street criminal who became a very powerful criminal. It was controlled by general coming out of the Venezuelan military academy.
So very well educated,
sophisticated. The Cubans and Hugo Chavez corrupted them. And And then they restore very powerful financially. So that's how this happens. So Cartel de los Soles is not like one very defined structure with a boss and a lieutenant and a pyramid, like a pyramid structure. Is a corporation of mini cartels. So each general were building their own network and geographical space inside Venezuela. For the American people to understand the size of Venezuela is roughly the combination of California and Texas together. So
Germany and France as well, right? It's another comparison.
But it's a very key geographical place.
Yes.
Venezuela is part of the Caribbean because 3,000 miles of Caribbean coast. So it's part of South America because you have the Amazonian in Venezuela shared with Brazil. And it's part also of the Andean region because you have the Andean mountain system. So it's in a place of a crossroad of geographical activities close to the Panama Canal, close to the Caribbean islands that goes from Trinidad and Tobago to Bahamas. So you have access to the Central American corridor. If I have access to the Caribbean corridor that bring drugs to United States via Bahamas or via Mexico. So, and at the same time has access to the Atlantic Sea directly straight through Europe. So that we're shipping also drugs to Spain and to the Netherlands. So now, when they realize how profitable, how effective was this tool to fight the US, then they start expanding. And then think about this. This happened at the moment the United States was invading Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting terrorism in the Middle East. So the oil price was 150 barrels, $150 per barrel. So Venezuela were being flooded with cash from oil sales, but also from cocaine. So this mafia started accumulating a wealth that no other mafia in the world ever existed have seen.
Yes.
So in my work, also I've been working with the U.S. Treasury Department and with the OFAC and trying to go after the money of those criminals. So there is one person which I do really have a greatest respect myself, which I've been working with for many years. His name is Marshall Beneslea. Marshall was Assistant Secretary of Treasury for Financial Crimes and Terrorism. So he was a person in charge of Treasury on the first Trump administration under Mnuchin on creating the sanction programs against different countries, Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, all those countries that are enemies of the United States. So working with him, I was not just focused on the kilos, but I was focused on the money.
Yes.
I was able to understand the crime from two different perspectives. Okay, the kilos is the logistical part of this, how you move it, how you do that. But then the weaponization of the money that was being produced by oil and cocaine to corrupt governments around the world. So they put allies on certain places who will facilitate them the logistic of the cocaine and the attack against the United States. So
how much money are we talking, Mark?
The low ceiling, the most conservative estimate done by the Treasury Department, and I've been discussing this with Marshall. Since 2099, February 2099, that Hugo Chavez took over Venezuela, to November 2025, so a few months ago, in 26 years, the amount of money they have accumulated on three commodities: oil and gas, gold, because Venezuelans also have incredible big gold mines controlled today by Tren de Aragua. And the third commodity is cocaine, is at least $2.7 trillion. Laura, I ask you and I'm going to ask anyone in your audience, what other criminal organization in the world has accumulated such numbers, such great level of wealth?
$2.7 trillion.
$1 trillion.
$2.7 trillion, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, with a T, 2.7. All right. Now, do you not think that when you have accumulated that amount of money, do you not think that politicians can be corrupted, bought, right, implemented in our own government under the disguise of, hey, I'm just another politician for somewhere else, right? What do you guys think about that, Mike?
Yeah, that's a lot, and obviously that gives them a lot of availability of leading people in particular directions, especially of office like that. I'd be curious,
2.7,
and yeah, and I would be
2.7
curious.
trillion.
Now, I wonder what the three-letter agency cut was of that too. So
And that's according to him, that is a lowballed estimate.
mhm.
So
And
mind you,
with their location and whatnot, I think they had assistance. I think our three-letter agencies, and not everybody, of course, it's just the bad ones think that. I think they probably had a pretty good hand in that as well.
well, they had a hand in it over in Afghanistan,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you remember, right? A lot of the operations that took place over there wasn't against, especially with the Taliban. It wasn't against, terrorism and stuff like that. No, it wasn't. The Taliban they're freaking narco traffickers, man. The poppy fields, right?
Oh yeah.
Heroin, right? And the agency was behind that. That's public knowledge, man. They were all over that shit. And a lot of the soldiers that were there during the time, they participated, not all of them, but some of them participated in those shenanigans as well, because there was money to be had, right?
Always
But what
gotta be
this
about
guy's
money.
talking about here and what he's exposing, and you guys will see it here in the video in a little bit, man. This stretches to our inner core here. It just does, right? I say, yes, though, says CIA been there all day long for decades. Yes, they have. Yeah, they have. Absolutely true. All right, let's go ahead and go back and continue with this because it's just going to get better. Here we go.
In 26 years. And that is actually a conservative estimate because
that's what you know about.
Yes, this calculating at very low level price of the barrel oil and the kilo of cocaine and the gold kilos. I mean, it could go probably to $3.5 trillion. It depends because it's hard to establish an exact number when you don't have access to every piece of data that you need to have access to. So we're talking about a massive criminal enterprise that exploded over the years of President Obama administration. It was under their watch. So what is the problem during that time? We at the DA keep doing this work, and the administration was not supportive. It was Emil Wolf in New York who said, I don't care. Those are criminal. I'm going to keep doing it.
Who said that?
Former prosecutor Emil Wolf.
Emil Wolf was the one who said that. I see.
Yeah, he's the one who made the decision, said, no, I'm going after this. I don't care. They're attacking us with drugs, and we're going to go after this. Because the Obama administration was not putting any resources into let the law enforcement to do this. So at the same time, the Obama administration has a foreign policy that was very, very good for the Cartel de los Soles. And I will tell you 3 of the foreign policies that was helping Cartel de los Soles. The number one, that we're using people in the Cartel de los Soles to help the Obama administration reconciliation with Cuba. Remember the trip of President Obama to La Habana.
I'm going to pause there again for a moment. If you guys remember, when Obama was in, he took a trip to Cuba and he basically lifted travel sanctions, which caused what? All right. him involved with Cartel de los Soles. But what did that also do? The Cuban, the recent ones that came here, I'll just come out and say it, the bad ones, the trashy ones. What did they do? Oh, we have free travel, right? We have free travel. We can go back and forth, right? Obama opened up the door. That's why the majority of them voted for him also as well. Why? All of a sudden, there are massive amounts of cell phone purchases, massive amounts of automobile parts, massive amounts of furniture, massive amounts of whatever they can get their hands on. And they were exporting it from here, importing it over there, and handing it out to the general public, not for free, for a charge, of course. And the government was all over that. All right. All of that was facilitated by Obama and Cartel de los Soles. But it gets better until they shut the door on that. I mean, we saw Obama on nationwide TV here attending a baseball game, right? We all saw it, having hot dogs, whooping it up, with the regime and stuff like that. You tell me here in the chat, what American president worth their weight in salt would actually do that with a known enemy? So for those of you saying, oh, Obama was no, he wasn't. He was a piece of shit then, and he's a piece of shit now. Mike?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you go back to what the guy talked about, how Obama administration killed the program of investigating cartels. That should give you everything you need to know. I mean, they're basically in partner with them.
And those tentacles stretch very, very far, right? You guys will catch that here in a moment. Here we go.
That was organized by them. The second thing from that administration was the peace process in Colombia with the FARC, with President Juan Manuel Santos, the substitute of Álvaro Uribe Vélez, who resulting in a socialist. And he was the one who pushed the reconciliation with the FARC, and the Obama administration was sponsoring that. But what actually produced that peace process? Well, that the U.S. Treasury left the sanction on the FARC, removing from the terrorist list, and allow the FARC to access to billions of dollars that were frozen that they used to fund the current communist president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro.
Bingo.
And that's amazing.
And the third element of that strategy, or that foreign policy of the President Obama
is the Iran nuclear deal.
The Iran nuclear deal, where Venezuela was the centerpiece of that. You're right, because we're going to have a very close relationship with the Ayatollahs. So when we were trying to put those people in jail, the very same government who was supposed to support DA and DOJ was actually colluding or eating in the same table with all those criminals.
It's unbelievable. So I mean, three nations that are essentially enemies of the United States. I mean, the Cubans, the Colombians, not of course, and
the leftist,
under the leftists, the Colombians, and then of course the Iranians. Three nations that were directly opposed to the interests of the United States. The Obama administration was sitting at the table with them, which is, how you begin to understand why would you agree to a deal like the Iran nuclear deal, which was such a bad deal for America and for the world.
So, but not only that, it left the sanctions on some elements of the Iranian government.
Yes.
It let Hezbollah to roaming free through Latin American. The Venezuelan regime were providing passport to the member of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the RGC. They were colluding. Those Iranians were flying to Mexico and coming to meet with the Mexican cartels. I mean, they were crossing the border into the United States. I mean, using Venezuelan passport. We were watching all of that.
Wow.
We couldn't do much. And I was the only private citizen, and the most of the rest of the people were government officials who has, as you know, limitation to disagree without consequences on their career. So,
and you're talking about American government officials, right?
Yes. I mean, the law enforcement people I work with, which, I mean, I cannot tell you the the admiration I have for them. I mean, it was the honor of my life working with those guys who risked their life to go out to chase those guys all over the world and trying to recruit the witnesses and bring there when the very own government that was supposed to provide cover and help and assistance were in the table with those very same criminals.
Was in bed with them.
Yeah,
basically.
we're in bed with them.
And by lifting, I mean, I think people understand, but lifting those sanctions against members of the FARC, the Colombian rebel movement, lifting the sanctions against members of Hezbollah and the Iranian regime, I mean, that's dramatic, right? I mean, that's your ability to move, to recruit, to finance, to operate worldwide. I mean, these are not small things that were happening as a result of the Obama administration's negotiations. Now, you could argue, of course, that every government has to compromise, and if peace and preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon is your goal, and so on. If those are your things, if those are your goals, that there's some kind of diplomatic compromise that has to happen. But this seems to go far beyond that. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely true. It was beyond that, because one thing is you have to make concessions. Every government will make concession here and there,
sure,
and trying to. But another thing is basically to turn your head into other direction and let those criminals to come and kill your own people. Because that's at the end of the day what they were doing when they are poisoning the United States in a way that we're doing it. I mean, how many generations in this country has been destroyed by these criminal activities, by the drugs? How many families in this country have lost their kids out of overdoses, or the criminality that has been increased because of these traffic activities in the U.S. and the public health crisis that have created in the United States, and the cost for us, the taxpayer, to trying to cope with all of this is just a disaster that was orchestrated by people who were supposed to prevent it.
It's so interesting because if we go back to that time, Martin, this is the same time, the same administration under Obama that's going out every day saying we have an opioid crisis. We have to hold the drug companies responsible because they have proliferated opioids. And, we have this epidemic of opioids. And so they cared about the opioids in theory, right? But they didn't care about the drugs. And, a lot of people will say, well, the thing with the drugs is it's not the same as a war because people are choosing to do drugs. And if Americans, the old kind of defense here is always that, well, if the appetite wasn't there, if Americans didn't want drugs, then there would be no market and then none of this would happen. And so basically they blame the victim, right? It's Americans' fault because Americans, like drugs and they like to party and they don't have their lives together. They become addicts and it's on them. We don't have to feel sorry about them. We don't have to feel responsible for them because they made personal choices and they're responsible and accountable for their personal choices. But that is what is exploited in drug warfare. That's what the cartels and the politicians know, because they know that people who are addicts are not joining the military because they can't pass a piss test. They're not joining, they don't have a sporting or athletic career for the same reasons. They're not going into Congress because they can't even hold down a job, let alone keep a family together. So the ancillary costs are basically never ending. And the only reason we have any kind of idea about it is that, some studies have been done. I think when there were around 60,000 overdoses back under the Obama administration, there was a study that said it cost the U.S. economy over $525 billion. If I remember that correctly. But there's not a lot of studies done that show the cost of this. So there's a physical cost to your families. There is an actual, financial cost. And then there's a cost in terms of the health of your society. And what people don't understand is that with drug warfare, where you're being targeted, it's not the same as some, washed up addict, dying on the streets of Vegas. We're now talking about people's children. I interviewed a DEA, senior DEA officer 10 years ago who told me my agent's prepared for war with the cartels. And what they're doing now is going into people's bedrooms and picking up 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids.
Listen, one thing that I want to highlight on this problem is the ecosystem, the financial ecosystem created around this business, and how that penetrate the political circles and the banking sector and other sectors in our society, and how the lobby industry, they don't openly lobby for a cartel de los soles, but there are elements of the lobby ecosystem who lobby for specific policies that actually help the business of drug trade. And that goes straight connected to politicians.
Wow.
And that was, no, I'm not talking just in the US. I'm talking in Mexico. I'm talking in Central America. I mean, the Cartel de los Soles become a cancer because they were weaponizing the oil and drug money to penetrate every political or every government they could penetrate in the region, because they need friendly governments. For example, in the Caribbean, how much is the cost of a political campaign of the Prime Minister of Martinique or Barbados? $30 million. That's one boat that we are seeing on the news being bloated. That's it. That's what it costs to fund one candidate that will play the game with you, and you keep it in power, or his party, for the next 20 years. And you have the logistical hub so you can keep moving this. Same thing in Honduras, which you saw the President Trump recently helped endorsing an Honduran president. Who was a person sitting there? The wife of Manuel Zelaya, a guy who was involved in the drug trade with the Cartel de los Soles, because you need Honduras as a logistical place to move the drugs plane from Venezuela to Honduras, so you transfer to Mexico. And for Mexico, the same thing, that we're penetrating politics, but also in the United States.
That's the part that people don't realize. How deeply penetrated is the United States in that?
In the United States, way more sophisticated. It's not like a drug trafficking lord come here with a bag of money and give it to someone. They were using very sophisticated, by the way, directed by the Cuban government, who understand Washington better than any other government in the world, because they've been watching Washington for 70 years.
I'm going to pause there for a second just to make a comment on what he just said. On the last stream, you heard from a former CIA operator, okay, who opined and said basically that the Cuban intelligence service is probably the most deadliest, most lethal, and most organized out of all of them ever. But they play old school, okay? They know how to play the game, and they're very, very good at it. So on that note, something else, and this is unverified from my sources down south, okay? Have you guys seen, not that there's any connection between the two, or maybe, have you guys seen anything on Fauci in the news lately? Better yet, have you seen or heard anything on Mayorkas in the news lately? Mayorkas was Cuban also as well. Rumor has it that he was part of Cuban intelligence. Let that sink in for a moment. The guy solely responsible with the border and letting these people in. Coincidence? I don't know. Mike, what are your thoughts?
That would not shock me one bit. These people that we're up against are capable of pretty much anything, and that's something that blatant. Putting someone like that in a position of power, especially on the border during that administration, yeah, I could see it being 100% feasible.
Yeah, think about that. Mayorkas, he just basically fell off the freaking map. That guy just disappeared. I'm even wondering, is he probably even in the country still? Or maybe he went back to Cuba. I don't know. Right? But the rumors are very, very heavy. I have not been able to verify that yet. Right? So take it with a grain of salt that he was Cuban intelligence. That to me, wow. When I heard that, I'm like, holy shit, I never connected those dots. But
if
no,
that's true, that's a huge middle finger. That's blatant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you're listening to it not from me, you're listening to it from this guy. You know? So anyway, all right. I just wanted to drop that in there. Let's press on.
Yes.
And then they were basically helping the Cartel de los Soles to use Citgo, who is controlled by Cartel de los Soles.
And explain who Citgo is.
Citgo, the oil company in the U.S., the gas station that you found in every town in this country. Citgo is owned by PDVSA, and PDVSA was under control of Cartel de los Soles. So what they're using...
And PDVSA is the oil company of Venezuela.
Oil company. So they were using, I mean, just to have understanding of the size of Citgo. Citgo has at least 4 refineries in the U.S., in Texas, Louisiana, and I think Chicago has another one. But Citgo in 2005 used to have more point of sales in the United States than McDonald's. So this is how big this company was. And this company become weaponized by the Venezuelan regime to fund political campaigns. And that's public data. You can go and who they were funding, the Democrat, they weren't funding any conservative. And they were.
Also, by the way, folks, he mentioned Citgo, okay? Venezuela, the connection, Maduro. Citgo has basically been absorbed by, at least here in my area, I can't speak for the rest of the country, where you guys are at. Citgo has basically disappeared from my area. And now they rebranded and they came back as another company called Valero. Valero is still Maduro, okay, formerly known as Citgo. Steve says here, where does Marathon get their oil for gasoline? That I don't know about that, Steve. I don't know about Marathon. I can't speak for them. But I know that Valero is definitely was rebranded from Citgo to that name to basically cover up what this man's talking about right now. But I don't know. I don't know about Marathon. Let's keep going.
We're using that as a tool. And this was happening at the very same time law enforcement is trying to stop it. And one of the narrative that you have here in the US is we will never win the war with the drugs. So then we just need to legalize the drugs.
Yes.
And I invite the American people to start looking for every politician who has been promoted that kind of narrative, who they took donation from. And you will find interesting coincidences. So no, it's the same thing. We will never be able to stop illegal immigration. Look at the border right now. No one crossed the border. Yes, you can do it. We also cannot stop drugs coming into this country. What we need is a strong government, like President Trump is doing right now, and basically enforce the United States law. That's all what you need to do. Enforce the law and go after them. So I celebrate the action, the bold action taken by this administration to remove the head of the cartel from power in Venezuela and start the process of dismantling. It will take a while because you don't dismantle such level of criminality in 3 days, but it would be a successful project. And I'm very happy for the American people that such an enemy that most of the time went under the radar. The Americans do not understand what Venezuela was in terms of a threat, because it was a friendly government for many years until the communists took over. And
well, Martin, can you explain? It's not just about drugs and oil money, right? And the corruption of politicians. It's also about elections.
Yeah, well, that will be my next topic, because the cartel become very sophisticated. That's why I want to touch the financial part. Because when you look into the financial sides of this, then you understand how much money they have to fund election machine. It was a limited amount of resources. The cartel was sitting on $2.7 trillion. How much it costs Dominion? How much it costs Smartmatic? How much it costs any of those companies? For the regime, nothing. There's
nothing for them to buy them.
Nothing to buy it. And they need those kind of tools because they need to buy legitimacy under the democracy. So the cartels were not only poisoning the United States people, they were hijacking the election process, the democracy.
Including the 2020 election.
Absolutely. And
which was stolen.
it was stolen. Absolutely.
There you go. It was stolen. All right. So let me poise this at you guys here in the chat, and Mike, you also as well. Do you not think, without a shadow of a doubt, what the ultimate prime objective was to go ahead and take Maduro down in Venezuela? Most of the people out there will say, yeah, that's a dumb question. It was about the oil. Not necessarily. Remember, they were the pioneers and they were the front people for Dominion and Smartmatic. All right. They went ahead and controlled elections, as he said earlier, not just here in 2020, but also Central South America and around other regions around the globe. That's who Cartel de los Soles is. That's how they operate. They've got the money to do it. Okay. Right. So, yeah, I know they've exported those machines. They're in California and other places, and we get that. But the central hub was taken out by going into Venezuela. All right. Don't miss that point. Let's keep going. Mike, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, actually, I accidentally shut my headset off and I had to redo all my settings. So I missed that end part there, but I was just going to bring up one point. I don't know if anybody saw, well, I'm sure a few did, that Trump at Davos called out the election fraud of 2020 and that arrest is starting soon. I think a lot of that information is going to come out, and it's going to be quite interesting roller coaster ride. But yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you get your influence via vote fraud, you get your people that you're aligned with into positions of power. I mean, it all makes sense on the bad guy's side.
Now, and again, this is just me, you know, how my mind works. I'd be curious to find out, okay, and maybe it'll be uncovered later on, I don't know. But I'd be curious to find out if this cartel had a hand in the whole Somali fraud thing also as well.
That'd be interesting. I think there might have
Mm.
been a lot of fingers in that pot. That was a lot of money to go around. I think they
$1
were just a bunch
trillion.
of stooges. Yeah,
$1 trillion with a T, bro.
yeah, I
Ilhan
think
Omar needs to be exported.
oh,
Seriously.
$30 million that she's worth right now, and you don't make that off of a salary of a government worker. So I think a lot of the Somalians that were involved in all this fraud, I think, is, hey, you wanted a shiny new car, and everything else was all kind of peddled out elsewhere. So that's my personal opinion on that one.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's keep going.
And it was funded by those criminal. And at the end of the day, people in America will start wondering how these, and excuse my expression, but I will use it because it's very graphic. A banana republic. How a banana republic becomes such a threat to us? Well, first of all, it was a oil republic, not a banana republic. So it has certain level of sophistication because the American oil industry built an incredible Venezuelan oil industry. And there were people in the country very well educated. It was the most wealthy country in Latin America for many years. And they have resources and knowledge. But then they come to realization, oh, we can build an election company and then pretend that we are the democracy when we can control the result on our wish.
And that was back in 2004,
That was
correct?
in 2002. And 2004 was the recall referendum.
The referendum
time
when
that they
Hugo
called it
Chavez was
here.
in power and he was facing a referendum that he was going to lose.
Yes. So then they realized how good and effective was this, because how many people in the world, particularly 25 years ago, understand the complexity of software coding? Nobody. So you just trust because you trust in general technology because it's helping you. So you tend to trust, and they use that in their advantage to basically create a software that was embedded with all sort of problems. And the way we learn about this is because when we were investigating the drug trafficking and we started recruiting Venezuelan government officials that were part of the cartel, they started saying to us, oh, we control election. We also get people elected in Argentina, in Ecuador, in Bolivia, in Nicaragua, with election machine that we own. And then they say also in the United States, and say, wait a minute, what? To control election in the United States? Yeah, well, we own this, and then when they start explaining. And at the beginning, DA has one mission, focus on the kilos, right?
Sure.
You can tell the DA, hey, they're smuggling a nuclear bomb, and if you don't tell that the nuclear bomb has a kilo of cocaine on top, all the time they will not listen to you because they need to stay in their line, right? No, because
right, they want to stay in their lane
because they're reckless. It's just because they're trying to do their mission, right? Other agencies are in charge of that other stuff, and they just rely on that. But then imagine if I go to the DA and said, hey, that general that was moving cocaine also control the election machines. They would look at me like I was like I need a straight jacket. What are you talking about? And you're crazy. And it took us a very long process of education to actually convince certain people around us, hey, you know what? There's a bigger problem than the cocaine itself, which is how this sophisticated criminal entity, but who was behind that criminal entity? Cuba, China, Russia, and Iran. So every enemy of the United States who start realizing that the regime acquired a company in Colorado named Sequoia, who was at the time owner of the 20% of the election market of the United States. And they installed their own software, the Venezuelan narco software, in that company. So for many years in the US, the American people has been voting on a software built by a cartel of drugs.
It's unbelievable. And what people don't realize is that it's the same software. So whether you're talking about the election companies, whether it's Dominion or it's Hart Intercivic or it's ESNS, whatever the companies are, Sequoia, they all use the same software.
The same, I mean, there are variation among themselves, but the key elements still there. So, and in my case, I've been investigating the Dominion one. And I mean, we were private citizens doing an investigation that probably more of the people that we will ask to join us would say we were crazy trying to do that investigation. But what I'm trying to tell you is that what we at the beginning thought was a very tiny problem and then a little bit bigger, then it became a massive. And I will do an analogy. It became a supernova.
Yes.
Of criminality. So a supernova because there was human trafficking. That's how we found out about TDA. How Tren de Agua was created by the regime. Then it was weaponized to go after the Venezuelan opposition. And they realized that army was so good to kill Venezuelans so they don't have to use the police. And they say, oh, here's a police state killing the poor people from the opposition. They will use a criminal gang to kill Venezuelan political opponents and torture them. And then it looks like, street crime.
I mean, yeah, it's just criminals.
With evil.
It masks the political nature of it.
They moved that gang to Chile, which was a conservative government, to go after them, and to Peru. And then they moved again at the end to United States. So that's why I call the supernova of criminality. People in the US just learned about Maduro recently. I mean, it's because President Trump has been highlighting this primarily. I mean, let's remember that was President Trump on the first administration who indicted Maduro. So just to explain this important part to you, building an indictment of a head of a state, it takes years of work. This is not something that was built overnight. It took us at least 12 years of investigative work, putting together the witnesses, putting together the evidence, recording, and follow the money, investigating financial records around the world, Swiss bank, UK banks, Chinese bank, Russian banks, is massive amount of work. And that's how in the first Trump administration under Attorney General Bill Barr, 18 members of Cartel de los Soles got indicted. And they couldn't be brought to justice at the time. That was in March 2020. Then we know what happened on November 2020. But what is interesting for your audience is what happened after. When President Biden took over the White House,
Yes.
few months later, the most important member of Cartel de los Soles who were sitting in the U.S. prison, including the nephews of Nicolas Maduro that were captured by DEA in Haiti, trying to move 800 kilos of cocaine into the U.S., got a presidential pardon from President Biden.
Jesus.
Did you guys hear that? 800 kilos, right? Pardoned by Biden. So sit here and tell me that entire administration, plus the leftovers that are in the current one right now, were not all in on this. Now you understand the problem and how deep it goes and how in trouble we are. I'm not even touching on the Islamic situation of that, right? Just that alone. Okay, a presidential pardon. Who in their right mind does that? But you're not going to hear this shit on the mainstream media, are you? Of course not. They're complicit also as well. Thoughts?
Well, it's probably the auto pen, to be honest. I'm sure maybe someone else in the administration thought it was privy to give them a pardon on that end. And I wanted to highlight another thing from what this gentleman's speaking about, and we went through this in the last podcast as well. He kind of brought up the usual players when it comes to the 2020, steel, Iran, Russia, China, Venezuela, Cuba, but we also can't forget about the Vatican and also unfortunately our own 3-letter agencies, deep state actors within there assisting in that as well. So
yep,
it's the deep hole.
That's it. And this is and again, these are the little nuances that you don't hear about anywhere. You have an idea, right? You can create your own hypothesis, if you will. Okay. But at the end of the day, we got problems here internally. Okay. So when I tell folks here on this platform, don't focus so much on what's going on geo-wise, Europe and China or whatever, Russia and all that stuff. No, we got problems here in the homeland, and that needs to be freaking addressed. And it needs to be addressed with the quickness because, again, the midterms are around the corner. All right. And we're still here in this kind of shit. So I don't know, man, but let's, we got issues. Let's keep pressing on here.
And a guy named Alex Saab, Colombian Lebanese guy, will link to Hezbollah, who was involved in the drug trafficking and weapon trafficking and money laundering, got also a presidential pardon, full pardon, probably by the auto pen.
There's the auto pen.
So it's Alex Saab, Maduro's nephews, whose names, do you remember them?
Yes. I mean, the name, on the top of my head, I don't remember the names, but I can send you later their names. You can Google it and you will find full presidential pardon with no explanation.
Yeah. And of course, the media has no curiosity,
at all.
about any of these things.
Although the Biden administration decided to lift sanction on PDVSA,
which is the Venezuelan oil company that at the time.
Oil company. So it led the regime to regain a strength, financial strength.
Yes.
And the Venezuelan team inside DEA got reduced to 2%.
Wow. That's the other thing that they do that nobody notices. They quietly, send people home through controlling the money and the personnel. That's how they cripple these initiatives. Like, President Trump set up this working group on to investigate weaponization of the government, and they're not getting any people and they're not getting any money. It's all been blocked by someone who's, probably very uninteresting to the American public because they've never heard of them. This is a person who's in charge of personnel at the DOJ. That doesn't sound very exciting, does it?
Yeah, absolutely true.
And look what they're able to do.
So now because it's a lot of information to be consumed, everything we're trying to address today, and to basically zoom out a little bit. So we have a nation state converted in a criminal organization that become from being a petrostate into a narco state, who allied to every enemy of the United States in the world, and been waging a hybrid warfare against the United States.
With diplomatic immunity.
With diplomatic immunity and with incredible penetration of the U.S. financial system, because they own Citgo inside the U.S. So they have access to the financial system, they have access to the business community, they have a legitimate business installed in the country. So that mix of oil and cocaine was a crazy stuff that is unacceptable that the U.S. national security apparatus did not confront. And it's only being confronted by President Donald J. Trump. God bless him.
What's the role of the Chinese in all of this?
Oh, the Chinese are the worst of all the supporters. Almost as bad as the Cubans. Because the Chinese are very sophisticated to pretend they are not involved. But they are the ones who were actually managing and controlling Maduro.
Interesting.
So the Chinese were behind. This is a Chinese warfare against the U.S. using a proxy. They realize this country has become rock. No one is looking at them. No one is paying attention to them. And they quietly move into Venezuela and start doing like Smartmatic voting machines. In our investigation, we found out they were not made in Taiwan. They were actually made in China. And they ship it to Taiwan from Beijing, and they relabeled them as made in Taiwan so they can enter the U.S. market. So
with Chinese spyware on it, by the way.
100%. 100%. I mean, that's why the U.S. federal government has prohibited.
Yeah.
Who remembers the trucks with the unused ballots? What do they call them? The bread trucks with the unused ballots with shipping labels coming from China.
Yeah.
or the embassy in, I believe it was Texas, right?
Yeah.
Where they were burning up documents out in the open.
Yep.
Yeah. Not questionable whatsoever.
No, not at all. But, to his point, right? Made in China, send it to Taiwan, relabel it as made in Taiwan, and then send it here. Spyware, right? You're in the tech business, so am I, right? So next time, you want to go out and buy yourself a refrigerator, I don't know, Samsung comes to mind that has, the webcam built into it so you can watch TV on your fridge. You may be having Hop Thing, tapped into your freaking fridge looking at you.
And I haven't validated this 100%, but I believe at one point or another, I had saw a story how they were able to intercept parts or create parts for the F-35.
There you go. There you go. It's insane. The depth of this issue that we're having here, that we're facing on so many fronts, it is insane. I mean, insane. This is shocking to me. Okay. Literally shocking. Okay. It's this. Anyway, let's move on, man. I'll get long-winded here. Here we go.
For agencies like the FBI, CIA, DA to buy any equipment that come, electronic equipment like photocopy machines or that kind of things, or routers that come from China, because all the Chinese, at the very least opportunity they have to infect any of those devices, they will do it.
Yes.
But we're chosen who sit on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue with Chinese hardware and Venezuelan software.
So what kind of power does that give Cartel de los Soles if they're instrumental in installing a president in the United States of America, the most powerful country on earth?
Well, imagine. I mean, they couldn't believe themselves how successful they've been on this endeavor, and how incredible effective they have been become.
But Martin, you know, as you're saying that, I realize what the difference is. There's one element of this that we haven't described, is it? And that is, it's not just that the cartel is allied with the Iranians and the Cubans and the Chinese and America's enemies. It's that the cartel has allies within the United States. That's what really gives it its
that
power.
they can blackmail.
Mm.
Either because the money they provide or the political help they give with the machine.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Easter egg in this video. You heard it from him, not me, right? Their tentacles have infiltrated our government here for a very, very long time. And this is the battle that Trump is facing. Say what you want about Bongino, say what you want about Patel, say what you want about Bondi, you know, not arresting anybody, blah, 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 this and that. Now you understand the firewall that they're battling, right? The lobbyists, the corrupt politicians. I'll drop this note on you, and it's out there. You can find it, right? Nothing secret. The guy he talked about earlier, which was the leader of the Venezuelan intelligence agency, Carvajal, who's now sharing the same prison that Maduro is in, plus his second in command, okay, released a document exposing the names of mostly Democrats and some Republicans, a few in there, that are on the payroll of this cartel. Some of those names will shock you. You can find it on X. Right? Just, you know, search for, you know, Carvajal and, you know, and the names released of, you know, the alleged corrupt politicians in our current administration, because it wasn't just Biden completely. No, Trump inherited a lot of carryover from Biden who are still there in play. And that's their firewall, right? That's their firewall. And I'm telling you, this is the battle. The battle is here. Not so much overseas. This country, if we lose this shit in the midterms, Trump is a lame duck. He'll be impeached the very next day, right? And that's it. Game over. Now, call me crazy. Mike, I'll let you chime in on this as well. Call me crazy. Let's say, like I said earlier in the broadcast, let's say that the state of Minnesota is the actual flashpoint, the trigger, right? To impose the Insurrection Act, which I believe is coming, to impose a state of national security, right? A problem, right? And he can do that state by state, or he can do it nationally. What then? The midterms get suspended until the crisis is averted? Because quite honestly, with the track record that Trump has currently right now, and the amount of time he's done all these accomplishments, one logically would think it's a slam dunk. Vote for Trump. Why would you want to vote for the opposition? Right? Why would you want to do that? Right? So with his poll numbers and his track record right now, it really doesn't matter if he suspends the midterms, right? He has the favor of the American people.
Same as
But that's yet to be seen. It's just my theory. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, going back to the Insurrection Act, yeah, I don't think there's any way around that. I think it's going to have to be a must. Everything that we've been seeing, I mean, you've got politicians, you got mayors, you've got everybody encouraging people to break the law, assisting. I mean, everything about what they are doing is an insurrection. It's sedition. It's treason. And I think that, you know, that administration, Trump in particular, and is waiting for that moment that that makes sense. I mean, the only analogy I could give is, that we are at a war. We are in a war, right? But it's not boots on the ground. It's fifth generation warfare. And like with any other war out there, things change. Someone on that side makes a move, then we make a move, then they make a move, we make a move, and you can plan for all sorts of contingencies. But things are constantly changing, and so I believe it is coming. When? I don't know. Is it needed? Absolutely, I think.
Yeah.
And I do think it'll be a nationwide thing. If not nationwide, it'll be states with some of the cities that are having more issues. You could have potentially some states out there that are fairly well off compared to, let's say, Minnesota, because I don't think Minneapolis is going to have a great time. I don't intend on going anywhere near there anytime in the near future. But yeah, that Insurrection Act has got to come. And when it comes to the vote coming up, there is no way we can use these machines. Hell no. I don't think there's any way that Trump would ever go for that. That's
Well,
suicide. And
no,
what happens to him and everybody else that supports him after that?
no, but he's already mentioned election day will be on election day only. No early voting, right? No early voting, nothing, and paper ballots, nothing electronic. And the pushback on that idea alone is horrendous.
Well, it shows you everything you need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they're using. They're using all the BS tricks and games to get by. That's exactly what 2020 was about. What is it? TCF down in your area in Georgia. What was it? Some big truck comes rolling in at like 2 a.m. dropping off ballots, day after election day.
Yeah,
It's got to go away.
That was Fulton County. That's not too far away from me. Trust me. I was all over that. Yeah. And I'm just saying it. My gut tells me right now, yeah, a huge black swan event's coming. It could come this weekend because of weather. Remember, Rahm Emanuel, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Power outages, what a prime opportunity, right? To inflict some damage. I don't know. It's a maybe, just my gut, right?
That'd be some hell of damage too.
Could be Minnesota. I don't know, right? No clue. Could be Michigan. I don't know that either. I mean, they're floating that out there. Okay, 65% of it anyway, right? Your state is like in the 90s. So what's that tell you? Now, remember the Ghost and I over a year ago. Now, on this broadcast, we said there's going to be anywhere between 14 to 18 cities, most of them, all of them, blue cities that are going to go into a chaotic state. Okay, so does that mean we invoke a national security problem, an event, right? Insurrection Act? We don't know, right?
Well,
but which cities are the ones that are on fire right now? Got New York, Patterson, New Jersey, Dearborn, Michigan, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Let's not forget Los Angeles. Oh, and then the other communist mayor that was elected in Seattle, in Washington. Okay. Dallas is in a flux. Not Austin, Dallas, Houston, and what's that other city? I think, Austin. They're in the flux also as well with all this Islamic shit going on. I don't know. Tampa, Florida is now in play. Amy Meck over on CARE or AIR, I should say, right? Go read some of her shit over there on X. Tampa, Florida is in play right now with this movement.
And that's one that I did not see coming, to be honest with you.
Not with the current governor you have over there.
No,
nobody saw that coming, but it's out there. And you can look this up. It's out there for public knowledge, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, we got a problem. All right, let's press forward here.
So that's a problem. You create compromise.
Or they share the same goals.
Even
same
worse.
ideology.
Even worse.
Right? If you have communists and Marxists in the United States in positions of power, and they share the same goals, or you have globalists who seek to destroy borders, destroy nations, right? Then you now is where your real power comes.
Yes. So for me, has been a very difficult process because I was born in a country that got destroyed by communists. And then I moved to this amazing, beautiful nation who has adopted me. And my kids were born here, so my kids are Americans.
And you're about to become an American citizen.
And about to become a U.S. citizen. So proud to do that and to join this incredible nation. I mean, this is, for the nature of my work, I've been traveling all over the world. I have visited probably more than 70 countries. And I always say this to my kids. There is no close to match anything that the United States of America means in their generosity, in their greatness, in the incredible creativity and innovation. But the saddest part of what I lived through being in this country with all the beautiful things that this country have, and found out very few Americans decide to betray their own country, to colluding with those enemies. And that is a very sad for me, because I was like, it's like you betray your mother. Like you cannot do that. Be grateful for what you have. I come from a country where people lost everything. I lost my whole family. I couldn't see my mom for 20 years until she passed away. My sister passed away alone with me on the phone, dying from cancer because the regime took away their passport. They couldn't travel out of the country. TNA, if I go there, I'm going to end up killed on the moment I put my foot there. So you cannot take everything for granted in life. You need to be appreciative of how fortunate you are to be born in a country like this. And that's why people like I've been working with that's in the law enforcement, I saw them giving their best to protect this nation. And it was the honor of my life to be working with them to do my contribution to a country who have gave me so much.
So for you personally, Martin, after so many years of working, more than a decade working on the indictment of Maduro and presumably his wife as well, I'm sure you worked on that too. What was it like for you to see the United States finally execute those indictments and bring Maduro and his wife into the U.S.?
I mean, that I have to tell you, that night when the operation was happening, I was about to go to sleep when I started getting messages from people on the ground that we have there's bombing here. And obviously trying to make phone calls and trying to corroborate it. And it took me a while to realize, until President Trump put out a post on Truth Social saying, we have successfully captured Maduro and move it to U.S. custody. It was very important moment in my life, because not the whole thing is over, but after 26 years of trying to protect this nation from those attacks, to see that the head of the snake was in custody, I feel so happy, not just for the work I did, but for the people in the law enforcement I worked with for many years and helped with, and DOJ. There were incredible people in DOJ who prosecute this, who did indictments. And I know how much effort they have put into this. And I felt that the light at the end of the tunnel was coming. So,
but Martin, can you explain to people? I mean, there were images all over the world of Venezuelans celebrating, and in a way, that's kind of what you would expect to see. But what also happened this time is that there were all kinds of videos of people recording the moments when they told somebody that they loved, or someone in their family, or friends, that Maduro had been indicted, and there were people who were weeping. Now, of course, most of the media focused on the handful of paid protesters, or more the people that were ideologically or politically motivated and directed, right, to be out on the streets. Many of whom didn't even know why they were there when interviewed.
Yeah.
But the focus in the media, was on trying to show the counter, right? The people who were against what happened, but they couldn't stop this tide of footage, videos and photographs and commentary from all the Venezuelans all over the world. I know some 8 million have been forced out of Venezuela under Chavez and Maduro as they've impoverished the country. But can you explain, what does it actually practically, physically mean? Because Maduro, not the sharpest guy, right? I mean, he was the face of the cartel. He was in charge, and he was directly responsible for what was happening. But at the same time, not the evil mastermind, right? They're still there.
Yes, they're still there. I mean, they're still controlling, but they're in the way out. So I'm not.
You mean like the Delcy Rodriguez's and the Jorge Rodriguez and the Diosdado?
I will tell you, Delcy Rodriguez thought President Trump invited her for a party until she entered the room and she realized President Trump invited her for a funeral home. And she's in charge of, she's a funeral director, and the funeral is for Cartel de los Soles. So I don't think she's as happy as many people think she is.
I see.
Because the Trump administration know exactly what has to be done. And that's okay. I mean, you have to work with people. I mean, this is no regime change. The Venezuelan vote overwhelmingly for Edmundo González and María Corina Machado. They stole the election because that's the best practice in the regime. And at the end of the day, the regime changed when the Venezuelan people actually trying to exercise the right of democracy to vote, and it was stolen from the cartel. And what the President Trump is doing is actually trying to bring democracy, not to Venezuela, but to the Western Hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine, or the Monroe Doctrine, is
the Trump Doctrine.
Yeah,
based on the Monroe Doctrine, but trumped up.
Trump Doctrine that he's doing. I mean, he took back into the hands of the United States security the Panama Canal at the very first action he took after he took the White House.
Yes,
telling the Chinese, get the hell out of here. He's doing the same thing with Russia, with Iranians, with Hezbollah, with Hamas, with the drug cartels. I mean, this gonna bring an incredible economic prosperity for those countries where the U.S. industry will benefit from. Not just the oil industry or energy industry, but many other industries.
Okay, but before we get to that, can you just explain what it means for Maduro to be gone? What does that mean to the people in Venezuela?
I mean, you can see some videos on social media. I mean, people crying, people joyful. Unfortunately, most of the media, these videos you see from people outside Venezuela, because as I said, the cartel is taking place. The Venezuelan inside the country have to be very careful. They're being caught celebrating. They got or they got thrown in jail. They get torture. They, in their heart, they know the change is coming. It's just going to take a little while for them to start celebrating.
But it's going to take more than Maduro, correct? Because while Maduro's gone, the cartel is still in place.
I mean, just to let you know, Jorge Rodriguez, which is the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly, is the real owner of Smartmatic, the one behind the creation of Smartmatic, which is Delcy Rodriguez's brother. And President calls Delcy Rodriguez the interim president of Venezuela, which is correct. That's right. She's the interim until a new, better day comes. And then the rest of the Venezuelans will be able to celebrate. But let me tell you, this is not only the Venezuelans who are celebrating. The Colombians are celebrating, the good Colombians, the Brazilians, all the population of Latin America who has suffered the consequence of this cancer spreading all over the region are grateful for the United States of America. and for President Trump for doing.
Is there an indictment coming for Delcy Rodriguez?
I would rather not talk about it. I will let the administration talk about that.
Sure, I understand. But
he just let the cat out of the bag, folks. Is there an indictment coming for Delcy Rodriguez, Jorge Rodriguez, and the other two henchmen? Yes. He couldn't say it, but it's coming, right? They need to get more information out of these people, more evidence, more proof, because when they do extract them and they wind up in the same cell or in the same jail, I should say, where Maduro is at right now, all parties are going to meet at the table and it's note-taking time. And what's that going to do? It's going to directly take the lid off our current corrupt politicians that are in DC. Then the shit's going to hit the fan. I'm waiting for that day with vengeance. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think so as well. Originally, I was thinking that they'd be left alone. You know, Trump made a point on Air Force One the other day where he said that, look what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan by just, essentially firing everybody that's in a leadership position. And, hey, we created ISIS. But, I can definitely see continuing heads to roll. But I think in the meantime, they're going to play ball, maybe for a deal. I don't know. Maybe they'll get the extra thick mattress in prison instead of the little thin one. I don't know. But
we'll
I
give
think
rum and cokes for you and Gitmo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe your stay there for life will just be a little bit better than the rest.
Yeah, we'll give you an empanada every other day. There you go. Yeah, but see, you saw the guy's his facial expression. She asked the question, "Are indictments coming?" He just smiled really big. He knows.
Yep. Yeah, he
right?
does.
But he can't publicly say it.
Big old grin.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
But let's just put it this way. The Maduro indictment is not the last.
Absolutely not. It's the beginning of many.
Okay. And so if the United States actually succeeds in dismantling Cartel de los Soles, right? Which is it's a huge undertaking. It's fraught with risk. Some of it's going to go wrong inevitably.
Mhm.
They'll use that against Trump in the media. But nobody's been willing to take it on. You've had this indictment that was there through the Biden administration. They didn't act on it. The Trump administration, the first time, didn't act on it. It's taken a long time to get to this point. I just wonder, what does the road ahead look like? Because the president is being, you could say very deliberate here. It's the way it appears superficially from the outside without having the inside knowledge, because, he moved all those, he moved all the warships in place. He moved all those military resources in place, but he didn't go, right? I mean, there were a lot of people wondering what on earth is happening. We've lost the element of surprise. The whole world knows that Trump is going to move on Venezuela. And then ultimately, he just did that one night of strikes, and there was certainly no follow-on operations that have been reported. There might be clandestine operations going on that I'm not, the public isn't aware of. But what else is going to happen here? Because I know that Gary Benson said there's a council. He's not going to go into details. Nobody wants to jeopardize the council itself. Delcy Rodriguez knows there's a council. She's not interested in working with them, according to reports. So what happens now?
Listen, I mean, I will be careful and telling you. I mean, in the military aspect, President was very clear to say, I am not going to remove the forces from that place, because he understands the job is not done. The very important person in President teams is Marco Rubio, because Marco Rubio, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as a senator from Florida, has been very close to the Venezuelan American community in South Florida. And he understands the true nature of every of those criminals. He's been working when he was in the Senate. So is a blessing for the Venezuelan people to have Senator Rubio, now Secretary of State Rubio, as part of the principal member of the teams there in the Trump administration in charge of this. So to be honest, I don't know exactly what decisions are being made inside the White House or where their plan is, but it's very clear that the plan is to get rid of the cartel. And it will not be a cartel light after this. It will be a true democracy.
I understand that there are elements within the U.S., especially coming out of the CIA, who are pushing for cartel-like. So when I see Marco Rubio go out and say Delcy Rodriguez is going to be the leader of Venezuela, it's like you're thinking like, I mean, are you serious?
Well, I will tell you, I get your point, but I also will tell you, Secretary Rubio saying that is the worst curse he can do to Delcy Rodriguez today. Because the cartel will kill her. I mean,
she's still breathing.
Yeah,
she's still breathing, Martin.
Well, we that may change. I don't know. She will be lucky if she come alive out of this, because she's a person with two knives. One knife is the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, and the other knife is Cartel de los Soles. If she pleases President Trump's demand, the cartel goes that way. If she pleases the cartel, the Delta forces take care of the rest of the cartel. So I believe the strategy from the White House is the implosion of the cartel. And then to work very slowly with a long-term strategy to substitute, so the U.S. will not get involved into nation building or regime change or or using the American troops. I mean, is genius what he's doing. It's genius.
Well, it is very interesting that you say that, because of course, when Trump goes there and says, "Oh, well, America is going to run Venezuela," of course, that plays right into the hands of all the people who say, "Wait a minute, I thought we were done with regime change, and how is this going to work?" Because we saw it fail spectacularly in Iraq and Afghanistan in recent history. And so, why would we think it's going to fail here? And also, most Americans just don't want to be involved in regime change anywhere.
100%. But I will say this to the American people, what President Trump is doing is not regime change, because we want a friendly guy in the neighborhood who's going to be helping us in our whatever foreign policy we want to establish. He's actually attacking a country who is attacking us.
That's what people don't understand.
He's defending the U.S. He's defending a family from Iowa who their kids are struggling with drug addiction, and that is ruining the family. He's protecting the unity of the family when he go after a group of criminals who principal objective is to poison the American kids.
Okay, but look at the ideology. You talked about that ideological alignment with the drugs and the money and power, right? And these are people who don't want the American family to be preserved. They're at war with the American family. That's part of the ideology, right? So you see the synergy there. They push for the legalization of drugs. They push for the separation of children from their parents. Suddenly they don't care about how many people are we talking about? How many children are trafficked by Cartel de los Soles?
I mean, millions. I was talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people.
Hundreds of thousands every year.
Every year. So
yeah, so millions.
So let me put it this way. I mean, 9/11 was a horrible tragedy in the United States. We lost 3,000 people that day, and many more as a consequence of the aftermath of 9/11. Cartel de los Soles have killed that amount of people in 3 months in the United States, poisoning American kids. I mean, the amount of people get killed by drug overdoses every day. And one important thing is the narrative on mainstream media is like, well, those both have cocaine, doesn't have to do with fentanyl.
Yeah.
Well, Cartel de los Soles also take the chemical from China that the precursors of the fentanyl that is made in Mexico. So they not only ship cocaine to Mexico, they also ship chemicals that are brought from China via Venezuela to Mexico. So
And they also, and the pill presses, right? The dyes,
yes,
all the things that make a Percocet that look, when it's a fentanyl pill, it make it look like it's a Percocet, or make it look like it's a Xanax, or, whatever it happens to be, right? They're providing all that infrastructure that builds the fentanyl industry.
yes. So, and he helped with the money laundering, and he helped with other things. So he's part of an ecosystem. It's not like just Venezuelan move 1 kilo from point A to point B and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, is integral part of a big ecosystem of criminality that is targeting day in, day out the United States of America.
So Martine, describe for me, because I know, I did an hour-long film about Venezuela years ago. And so I began then to learn how many people had been disappeared, under the Maduro's illegitimate rule, under the cartel, really. How many political prisoners there were, how many women were just taken and either raped, murdered, tortured, how many... how poor Venezuelans were. You remember the footage of Venezuelans going through the trash looking for food. And we're not talking about, some homeless people on the street. We're talking about people across the country. I mean, when you drive 8 million people to flee for their lives, that is quite something. So can you give us a sense, as a Venezuelan, as someone who has family and friends and is in touch with people there on the ground, can you give us a sense of what it has been like living under a cartel?
Well, let me say this to you. Fortunate for me, I've been 26 years in this country, so I left at the very beginning of the regime, like months into the Chavez first term. And I did not live myself directly the struggle in the country because I was living here in the US. But obviously the family I have there who slowly were disappearing struggle with exactly the human terror, the human crisis that you are describing. I mean, when you think about the human cost of this, is just unthinkable. Is a horror movie. I mean, the disappearance. I mean, I do not have on the top of my head the numbers, but I can tell you, we're talking about thousands, if not millions of people who their life expectancy got shorter because they destroy the health system of the country, because people do not get medicines. I remember, I'm going to tell you this story to make it more graphic. What is the human cost of this? I have a good friend of mine from a city in the Andean part of Venezuela called Mérida. Beautiful place, by the way, in the middle of the mountains. It's like the Venezuelan Alps, the Venezuelan Rocky Mountains. Very beautiful city. And one day he called me concerned that his good friend, a priest from a neighbor church, have to himself go to a mental hospital to ask for help. And he was telling me the struggle of his friend, his priest, his pastor at his church. And I asked, well, what's going on with him? He said, well, he happened to be the priest of a kid hospital, like hospital only for kids nearby, and he goes all on the time always for the oncology part of the hospital where the kids with cancers are, and he's such in distress because every time he goes and meet the kids ask him for a miracle to calm their pain from cancer because there was no medicine, painkiller for them. So that is the nature of the tragedy. When you have 8 years old kids dying from cancer, this regime is looting a country with $trillions of dollars. And meantime, those innocent souls cannot have even one painkiller to calm So the priest couldn't endure that any longer, and he had to look for professional help because he was on such level of distress and pain himself, because the kids innocently were asking to the priest, help us with a miracle. You are closer to God. This is what we're dealing with.
It's unbelievable. And I'm wondering, that point at which Venezuela went from being a petro state to a narco state, that really was with the rise of the communists.
100%.
That would be Hugo Chavez's election.
Hugo Chavez's legacy.
Which happened when? What year was that?
1999, 2000.
1999.
He started his mandate in February 1999, and it took him few months to start regaining control of every institution. So he started with the police, then with the military, then with the oil industry, then with the electoral council, with the Supreme Court, and he was substituting. It was a slow cooking process until he gained control of everything around 2002, 2003. He changed the law. The amount of Supreme Court judges were 9th, and then he increased it to 23.
Wow, that sounds familiar. Nothing like what the Democrats are proposing to do in the United States.
It's the same playbook. And then he took over control of every institution, and then he destroyed the economy. Venezuela became the most efficient factory of poverty in the world, to the fact that Venezuela produced more immigrants than Syria, who was in a civil war. So 8 million people. And by the way, it's sad because 99% of the Venezuelan immigrants are good people. But Maduro have the great idea to ship Tren de Aragua into the United States. So the image the American people have of Venezuelan immigrants is like they're gang members, because what Maduro did. So as part of the consequence of the tragedies, you are being an immigrant looking for help, and the whole world look at you like you are actually a criminal, because the very same regime who made you leave the country took the worst criminal of the country and started moving them to the very same country you were looking for refugee.
Yes, and what people don't understand, when you say gang member, they don't really understand that Tren de Aragua is not a gang. It's a foreign paramilitary force
100%.
that was infiltrated into the United States to create violence, to create instability, and really to act as an arm of America's domestic enemies.
Yeah.
Domestic and foreign enemies working together.
There is 2 letters recently being issued by 2 generals from Venezuelan army who are in custody and serving sentencing prison time in the U.S., who make a public letters explaining how Tren de Aragua was created by the regime as a paramilitary force on the form of a gang. So it looks like crime street, but it was
okay. So one of those Venezuelan military officers is Hugo Carvajal.
Correct.
Who you mentioned, and why is Hugo Carvajal in custody right now?
Well, he pleaded guilty on several charges of drug trafficking. And I mean, he was part of the general who go following the orders from Hugo Chavez to help the FARC, and as well like Cliver Alcalá Cordones. I mean, I don't want to go in deep into the level of responsibility they have or not.
Sure.
Or following
but I'm
orders.
just trying to help people understand. So you have these 2 very senior figures from Venezuela who are in U.S. custody. And as I understand it, Hugo Carvajal has been trying to share the information that he has with the Department of Justice, and people are not. Has he even been interviewed?
As far as I know, he has not been interviewed yet. Now probably he will be interviewed, because now they have Nicolas Maduro in custody, so they may need his testimony. But I will tell you that the problem is now he knows only about the crimes of the drug trafficking. He knew about the all sort of crime that we had been discussing through this program, and then there are probably people in this country in the government side, different agencies that may not like him talking about things. They're better off if he shut up.
So I'll say it.
There you have it. Again, from me, and now you're getting it from the horse's mouth. This is exactly what I talked about earlier. Carvajal, right? Leader of his intelligence apparatus in Venezuela, who's now in the same prison that Maduro is in. Has he been interviewed? Has he said anything? Allegedly, he leaked a list of sitting elected officials in our current administration right now who are on the take for Cartel de los Soles money. Most of them Democrats, some Republicans. This is what they're at right now. This is what he's trying to more or less sprinkle on you right now. I tend to believe that leak is true. And if that is the point, that is the case, again, do yourself a favor and go to X, okay, and look it up and wait till you read the names that are on that list, especially on the Republican side. It's insane. So they would rather have him shut up. All right. I'll just leave it at that. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and that's just this one individual cartel. Imagine all other cartels out there that have a finger in our politics here in this country, and everything outside of cartels. The web is deep.
Mexico comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way, and again, allegedly, Mexico wants their territories back from the 1870s.
Good luck.
They're setting up a silent coup in a network, mostly west of the Mississippi. Okay.
That's cute.
They want their land back. They're mobilizing troops also as well. For what? I don't know. Maybe they're going to start droning the shit out of the cartels down there too. I don't know. No idea. I was just putting that out there. Could be me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have my tinfoil hat on yet, but whatever. All right, let's press on. We're almost there.
For you, the people inside the CIA and inside Congress who are dirty, who have a lot to hide, and Carvajal and Maduro know who they are, right?
They know who he is.
They know exactly who they are. And these people now, I mean, they'd rather see Maduro and Carvajal dead, wouldn't they?
Probably.
It certainly would benefit them.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that will be the case, but I can tell you one thing. What we can do is actually do the opposite of that, which is throw the light into his testimony and what he knows, and make sure the American people understand the truth. I think the truth kill any other thing. I mean, I remember the propaganda machine saying those conspiracy theories about Smartmatic never have done election in the U.S.
Oh yeah, they attack.
And I can go on and other things. I mean, like that. And I saw the other day someone with a T-shirt that said something like, every conspiracy theory that I've been accused of peddling happened to be now all through, or all conspiracy, not theories, but conspiracy.
Yeah,
so that's pretty much what is being exposed here.
They're conspiracies. They're not theories. Yeah, they're actual real seditious conspiracies.
And let me say this. You cannot go to a grand jury on drug trafficking charges and being charged because you just want to indict someone. I mean, judges are very strict with that. So the threshold of evidence and testimony and witness is really high. So anyone who comes forward saying, oh, this is all done for the oil, political reason. Speaking about oil, the U.S. won the Venezuelan oil. The U.S. has paid for every drop of oil ever took from Venezuela. The U.S. is the only country in the world that have taken Venezuelan oil paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give you an example, Cuba in 26 years got from Venezuela 150 barrels of oil per day, for free. Cuba did not go to Venezuela looking for the recipe for the arepas, neither the Chinese. They were for the oil. The oil industry in Venezuela was built by the American oil industry. Venezuela stopped being a rural country and become a very strong economy in the 50s, 60s, 70s because the generosity of the American oil industry to provide the expertise to the locals how to build their own oil industry. So when I hear people saying, oh, the American government just want to go for the oil, let me tell you, I'm so happy to hear that because that's the only people in the world who actually pay for the Venezuelan oil. So
it's fascinating. And Venezuela has the largest natural oil reserves in the world. Right?
300 billion of barrel in proven reserve, which do not include shale oil. If you add shale, maybe you get to 400 billion. So the amount of wealth that we're talking in Venezuela right now between oil and minerals and a couple of other assets Venezuela have is being estimated by professionals in the field about $15 trillion.
$50 trillion?
$15 trillion in wealth. And this was being managed by a drug cartel, Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba. Give me a break.
And what is the level of poverty in Venezuela? How many people live below the poverty line?
Above 90%.
Above 90%.
Yeah.
So one of the naturally richest countries in the world.
Yes.
And with one of the highest poverty rates.
And let me say a little bit about history of Venezuela and the United States. This is data that very few people know. Venezuela provided to the United States most of the oil that was used in World War II. Venezuela was the only country where ships were sunk by the Nazi U-Haul, the submarine from the Nazi, because they were trying to cut off the supply line between Maracaibo Lake and Corpus Christi, Texas. Venezuela was the most reliable supplier of energy to the United States in the 70s when the Middle East war broke in wars and the shutdown of the Suez Canal and the Yom Kippur War and all those conflicts. The Arabs were blackmailing the rest of the world with their oil. Venezuela was pumping as much oil as they can to supply the United States economy. So Venezuela is the only country who played baseball in the world that the Marine never been there abroad in it. It was the oil industry. So the Venezuelans majority look at the United States as the big brother, the role model that you want to emulate, that you want to be like.
Pause there for a minute. I said earlier in the broadcast what exactly he's talking about now. And that's why President Trump dropped a comment stating that, Venezuela is a problem, Venezuela this, Venezuela that. And they stole what belongs to America. What was he talking about? He was talking about the same thing I said in the broadcast. They went in wherever they set up a drill, wherever they set up their towers, right? The pumps and all that stuff, you have to do a land lease, which the oil companies do. So technically, that lease and that land where they're pumping the oil out of, a certain percentage of that is property now of the United States for America, okay? Not Venezuela. When Maduro came in, Chavez and Maduro especially, he stole all of that back and no more oil for America. It all goes overseas somewhere else, Cuba, Russia, China, so on and so forth, okay? That's what he's talking about here, all right? So just wanted to let you guys understand that. Let's go ahead and continue.
And I heard one comment from actually he's not a Venezuelan, he's a Colombian, very well-known politician. He told me one day, I'm very sad because he said, we all within Latin American wanted to be like the US And he said that during the Biden administration. He said, and now I found out that the U.S. want to be like us, a disaster.
Fascinating. And let me ask you something, Martin, because this is not just about drug trafficking. I mean, when you talk about that relationship between, for example, Iran and Venezuela, does Iran have bases or logistical bases, logistical hubs, important, territory, ability to operate inside Venezuela?
I mean, I can go on a map with you and I can point of all the location the IRGC control, physical locations.
The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, who are essentially the cartel that runs Iran.
Yes, yes, exactly. And they were partners, they've been partners. And they control ports in Venezuela. They control their own logistical hub. They control weapon deposits. They control drone factories. They control uranium processing plant because Venezuela has uranium, not in the quantity like Canada or Russia or US, like you have mining in Montana of uranium, but decent amount of uranium that the Iranian wanted for the nuclear program. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I mean, Venezuela was always protected during the Cold War because the U.S. was trying to prevent the Soviet Union, which Cuba always looked at Venezuela as a place to grab because the oil wealth, and they need because the communists are like a parasite. They don't produce anything. They know how to live off other people's money, and that's what they were looking for. And the U.S. was protecting, and that changed during the Clinton administration. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the Clinton administration decided to remove all the assets the CIA used to have there and the diplomacy, and left Venezuela abandoned. And then the Cubans saw the opportunity to come and grab it. And Venezuela was like a very naive society who did not understand, because always live under the umbrella and protection of the United States. So Venezuela did not have an intelligence service.
Yes.
Because you rely always in the U.S. And at the moment the U.S. removed themselves from the equation of the Clinton administration, an easy prey by the communists of Cuba and China, who was in the race. And look how this story ended.
Look how it ended. And so if you have that level of cooperation with Iran, what do people forget that the IRGC and Iran have been named as the #1 state sponsor of terrorism worldwide for, going on 3 decades.
The first time I went to the U.S. Congress to talk about the Iranian presence in Venezuela, I ended being mocked. And I remember elements of the intel community came forward saying that I was working with Ambassador Roger Noriega, who is U.S. ambassador to the OAS, Organization of American States, and later on become Assistant Secretary of State for the Western Hemisphere during President Bush 43, and Colin Powell was the Secretary of State. So he and I were trying to educate the lawmakers about this, and the intel community will come after the two of us. Ambassador Noriega is from Wichita, Kansas, and they said that we were crazy. That basically two nutheads going in the city talking about a nonsense. And today, this morning, the Department of War announced the confiscation of a ship that was coming from Iran named Bella 1, and it was trying to enter to Venezuela. And when the U.S. Navy trying to board they basically declare hostile, and they chain the flag, they paint the Russian flags on the ship, and they trying to go to Russia. And it was captured today between Iceland and the UK by Navy SEALs. I'm just waiting to see what the Navy SEAL will find inside the ship.
We already know what they found inside the ship. It didn't have a drop of oil in it, but it sure as hell had 2 components, aside from military weaponry, and another key component, which was what? Uranium. That I got a hold of. That was confirmed. Mike, any comments on that?
It doesn't shock me at all. And plus, the ship wasn't sitting very low in the water for being a tanker.
Bingo. There you go. But of course, you know, the regular mainstream pundits, they omitted that out, right?
Of course.
Because they're being handled by Five Eyes, okay, and they will only provide you with 80%, if that, of the story, but they'll never give you the other 20% because, oh my God, we might freak some people out, right? And
Yep.
you can't do that because, goodness gracious, you know, the purple-haired, vaxxed freaking white women, okay, the Karens of the world will have a freaking fit, right? So no. Anyway, I'll leave it there. All right, we're almost done, folks. Let me go over here and continue here.
Why the ship was so afraid to be captured by the U.S. and that ship was coming from the port in Iran.
That's not oil that they're protecting.
No, there was empty of oil, so there was something else inside. Because you don't have anything to hide. You want to come over the ship? Come over the ship. Look, there's nothing.
Sure.
But
what is your knowledge and
experience? You run away from being, and the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Coast Guard spends almost 12 days chasing the ship until finally today got captured by the U.S. Navy. So, I mean, there's so many things that obviously we cannot go over in one interview because it's years of work. But what I can tell you is the world today and the United States today and Venezuela today is a much better place thanks to the bold actions of President Donald J. Trump, but more important, the armed forces of the United States. Those Delta Force guys who went almost like a movie inside the country without losing anybody, but risking their life with courage and tackle the biggest problem we have in the neighborhood, which was this criminal organization, is something like every American should be proud of.
Well, what if it stops there, Martin? What if they don't finish the job?
There are many Martins out there fighting for keep doing it. Believe me, there are many Americans and people like me who will keep the fight. And I don't think President Trump see this as the end of the process, but instead as the beginning of the process.
Now, isn't it kind of dangerous for you to be speaking out publicly, given the nature of what you do? I suppose you've been doing it for so long at this point that there's no hiding it. I mean, they've come after you.
Well,
you've been attacked. You've been accused of being an Israeli spy. You've been accused of everything.
No, they even went worse. They used their money to put a leftist government in Spain. They were to Spain. They put 5 Venezuelan criminals to go to accuse me in Spain and convince the Spanish police that me with 5 other policemen of Spain working with the DEA was leading an extortion ring against those poor criminals for Cartel de los Soles. So I am the only guy in the world that wants to commit a crime and choose as a victim the head of the cartel. I mean,
you're such a bad man for going after the head of the cartel.
They built an incredible information campaign against me.
Yes, I saw it. I saw it. I did Google you.
I mean, Don Vito Corleone will be jealous of my life. And by the way, every co-conspirator I have in that case were police officers from the Spanish police who were helping the DEA to capture those criminals. But the moment the conservative government left and the left took over, they came after me. I can tell you an anecdote, which is not a nice anecdote, but I met one of the generals that are in custody, and I said, I know you're trying to kill me, to eliminate me. And he said, well, that was more than once. There was like 5 times. I was aware of only one. And obviously it's risky. and it's complicated. But that's nothing for what other heroes in the U.S. has been doing. I mean, real risk, what those guys did on January 3rd, and in coming out. And I cannot tell you, as a new American citizen about to be, how grateful I am for those service members who are protecting each of us and providing us the freedom that we enjoy in this country. So God bless them.
Well, Martin, I know that we got to let you go to your meetings. I appreciate it so much being able to talk to you. There is a lot more involved in this. I know. I would love to hear the details on exactly, how it went down on 2020 as the people who stole the election were watching it being stolen, right?
More than happy to come back anytime so we can continue the discussion.
Yes, and definitely keep us posted on those indictments.
I will. So it's an honor to be in your program, and great.
Thank you.
I admire your work, and I'm just a common private citizen who has been doing what we're supposed to do. And I'm more than happy to come back to keep talking about the good work of the American people who defend this country, which I've been privileged to work with.
Well, I know there's a lot of political prisoners in Venezuela. That's something that I'm watching very closely. It's always close to my heart. I can't bear it, injustice. And I also know that if you have any plans to go back to Venezuela when it's safe enough for you to do that, maybe you can find a spot for me in your suitcase.
I will love to. I will honor. I still found in Wyoming a much better place for me.
Wyoming is beautiful.
It's so beautiful. So I'm going to be safer in Wyoming than any other place. So.
Probably, yes. You got a good chance. So they just don't make a cowboy man.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for watching. Everybody, you know what to do. Like, share.
All right, folks, there you have it. All right. I hope you got value out of this today. Lots going on. It's like drinking from a fire hose, really. Mike?
Yeah, it's a lot to digest. So, but valuable information nonetheless. So, if he's going to come out and start talking about 2020, I hope he has some sort of protection, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a target on his back. But,
yeah,
you can see the passion in the guy when he's describing certain events, whether it was his past there or his appreciation for being welcomed to this country. And that's a patriot right there. He might not have been born in the United States, but that guy's a patriot. So hopefully someday, when things in this hemisphere are cleaned up and we can all just get along and be prosperous with one another, and he can him, along with anybody else that might have immigrated from here, to hear from Venezuela, to be able to go back home and actually, enjoy some of that wealth that they should be enjoying, with the trillions of dollars that's being pissed away by cartels. It's sad. They go through and essentially just strip a nation of its wealth, and everybody suffers. 90% in the poverty line. That's insane.
Yeah.
So that's got to end. It's got to stop.
And his sentiments that you just touched on right now are damn near choked up when he said that, is because my heart is exactly where his is too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, yeah. And this is one of the reasons why I do what I do here. Right. It's just to get the word out, get the message out, try to open as many eyes as I can so people can actually see what is really going on, because honestly, I don't think they're going to get it anywhere, especially on the TV. They're not.
No,
right?
Not at all.
So I'm going to scroll up to the chat here really quick. There was a comment that I believe Yesto did here. Jeff put a comment. He asked a question. It says, where did he go? Where did he go? Yeah, Jeff asked the question. He says, do you think Gaza is the pilot program for that rebuild? That's a yes and no answer. But I can tell you, based on what I know so far, is, and I replied back to him, I said, unknown at this time. The focus is the Western Hemisphere, in my opinion, right now. Yesto said, I don't think that's true until the world is stabilized to a certain extent, like Africa and the Middle East. I'm going to agree and then disagree with you on that one because of the fact that until there's one key component there on that response that you guys have to know and be aware of, until we get one element out of the way, and that's the banking families. Okay. Israel will continue to be a slight thorn in our side. Okay. On the intel aspect of it, trying to coerce, Trump into going and attacking Iran and all that stuff. I think it's all theatrics. I think it's all kabuki theater, in my opinion. Eventually, at some point, yeah, Gaza will be resolved. Africa will be resolved also as well, especially with the Congo, okay, because of rare earth also as well. But I don't see that being a priority right now. The priority right now, again, in my opinion, as Trump eloquently stated at the World Economic Forum, is the Western Hemisphere, the Golden Dome, Greenland, also as well. Peace, commerce, and trade with our current adversaries right now in the hemisphere, that he's actually working on cleaning that up. Because I say that because the Middle East will always have a presence there, regardless of whatever. Okay. But once you have India, once you have China, once you have Turkey, okay, and also the Saudis as well, doing the same thing over in that side of the world as Trump is doing here, and they are working on getting that done with our assistance, of course, they'll become stabilized also as well, as will Africa, right? Because right now you still have elements of Boko Haram over there. You have the massacring of Christians over there. Okay. And that's being addressed also by Trump. So yeah, it's work in progress basically there. Yes, though. But yeah, great question. I appreciate the, your opinion on that, but it's work in progress, man. And that's just the way that I see it. But, we here have to stay focused, not to coin or quote General Flynn. We have to stay focused on America, the inside of America right now. DC, the Islamic problem that we're having, we have to stay focused on that, right? We still have thousands and thousands and thousands of illegals in the country that have a nefarious mission, which is to create harm, create violence, and kill as many as possible. Okay, we're not done yet. This is work in progress. And this is why I stated earlier that I feel, in my opinion, the Insurrection Act is around the corner, whether it be nationwide or whether it be selected states that have mass critical issues, right? But if he declares, a state of national emergency, which is nationwide, before the midterms, okay, and locks this thing down, we are at that point where everything is going to change, especially with the financial sector, right? Fiat's going to be gone. QFS will be in. And I'm not, professing Q here, but you know what? They're on point. We're starting to see that with crypto, especially with crypto. I mean, look at Rumble, right? It's already reached this platform as well. The tip jar that's down there in the lower part of your screen. Okay. That's not actual fiat stuff. It's crypto. I mean, Jeff, if he's still in the chat, he'll tell you, right? Because he is in tune with the CEO of Rumble. If I get it right, he deposited, a nice hefty lump sum in his tip jar in crypto. Crypto will be our future as far as financial things are concerned. And yeah, Q is legit though. I'm not discounting them at all. Okay.
100%.
I am not discounting Q at all. Okay. But every now and then, based on what's going on right now, all right, you do have to go back and look at some of their drops, even, as old as they may be. I get it. But they're right on point with current events right now. Right on point. Okay. So again, work in progress, folks. Work in progress. All I try to tell you guys here is this. I know with every fiber of my being, we are going to face a black swan event, and it could happen tomorrow. It could happen the day after with this winter storm that's coming. I don't know. I'm just putting that shit out there. Okay. Oh, and by the way, I'll mention this also as well that I uncovered. So in the state of Montana, I believe it's Montana, Anthony Fauci had a biolab, right? And one key component or one key ingredient mysteriously disappeared. It went missing, it disappeared, or it went somewhere else, right? And that's starting to gain steam right now. We got this flu superbug that's going on out there. And this, apparently this component, okay, no taste, no smell, you can't even see it. Now there's talks out there, believe this or not, that BlackRock has their hands, and it was confirmed by O'Keefe Media, who went undercover and got them on film and on tape stating that, yes, BlackRock is behind creating artificial rain. Think about that for a moment. Well, if they're creating artificial rain, right, what's inside that rain and what's the purpose of it? Oh, let me see. To make it rain in the desert? No, sorry. We have chemtrails that take care of that, and that's old fucking news. But I'm just saying, a lot of conspiracy in that, okay? But if you start connecting the dots, right, and you start looking at the Q drops, there's a lot of mention of that shit in there too, right? So again, take it with a grain of salt if you want, but I'm just saying, please, please, please be extra vigilant when you go out and about to carry on your daily business. Talk to your kids, make sure that you're prepared at home, okay? Because I just feel it, man. And I'm being honest. I don't want to do fear porn here or anything like that, but I just feel something is coming. It has to come. Mike said it earlier in the broadcast. It has to come. This has to get reset. We cannot continue with this system of maritime trade or law or commerce. It's got to go away because it's fraud. Okay. This needs to happen. And my belief is that it's going to, and I'll just leave it there. Mike?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't let things get so out of whack over the decades and then go to correct that and not feel any sort of bumps and bruises. You know, that's not how that goes. It's not going to be a fluid transition. And obviously there's going to be people who fight back, and especially when it comes to the deep state. You know, the one thing I'll say though is that the future is bright. So the changes that are coming down the road after this is, you know, a done deal, we're going to be able to get back to what life should be about, and you know, real money, and get rid of these BS conflicts everywhere that are generated by assholes who don't have our interest. You know, it's down the road, everything will be much better. But again, like Armando's saying, like we're going through some bumps and bruises. We're not going to be able to just defeat this Hydra without any sort of pushback. And you know, that's unfortunate reality we live in. But you know, don't think of it as, you know, don't be scared and be prepared is essentially what I say to anybody I talk to. So that's all I can really say about that.
Yeah, you're right on point, brother. And all I know is, man, especially in your state that you're in, it's sad, but it's reality. It is a hot mess right now. Okay. It is a hot mess. But in any event, folks, thank you for stopping by today. And I hope you got value out of this. And if you did, please like, share, subscribe. But most importantly, leave a comment down below, whatever it may be. It just helps the algorithms here on Rumble. You know, check out the new merch. Jeff, if he's still in here, I don't know if he's seen this yet, but I'll show it off one more time. My latest t-shirt drop. Government plus politicians equals FOOBAR. So if you guys like the shirt, feel free to hop over there. I'm actually thinking a little bit later on about creating a raffle or a giveaway, if you will. So just keep that in mind, right? It's just things I like to do from time to time. But anyway, Mike, thank you so much, man, for stopping by. I'll talk to you on the back channel once we get out of here. I'll drop this again. Ghost couldn't make it in here tonight. He had work come up. But he did text me and tell me that, to make it up, he's got some information that he wants to drop also as well. So chances are very highly that we will do a special live stream anywhere between tomorrow and going through the weekend. Don't know which day as of yet, providing that the power doesn't go out and the internet doesn't go out. Okay. There was a report, and let me see if I have it here before I get out of here. It's important for you guys to know. I don't know if I took a screenshot of it or not, but let me just look here real quick. No, I know where I can find it. Stand by. I have to put this out there for you guys so that way you know. And I randomly, here it is, and I randomly found this out on X, okay, also as well. And this is coming from the U.S. National Weather Service, okay, not some propaganda or misinformation. And I'll read it to you. It says a planned service outage will occur on January 22nd, which will impact some of our services for most of the day. Critical services, warnings, and forecasts will continue to be provided, but NOAA weather radio stations will be off air. Radar data from KMUX will be unavailable, and interruptions to climate summaries and regional temperature and precipitation tables are possible. Have multiple ways to receive warnings. Severe weather can disable communication systems. All right. So the planned service outages are, they're saying, is going to be on January 22nd, which is today, actually. That being said, it says here a planned service outage will occur on the 22nd, which will impact some of our services. Continuing on their bullet points, critical services, warnings, and forecasts will continue to be provided. Impacts include NOAA weather radio stations off the air, QMX radar data unavailable, possible interruptions to climate summaries and regional temperature and precipitation tables. Have multiple ways to receive warnings. Severe weather can disable communication systems. All right. So basically, they're forecasting an outage. So how do we get around this so you can stay informed? If you have a shortwave radio on hand, okay, go ahead and tune into that. Shortwave radio. If you don't have one, you can probably pick one up on Amazon. They're very, very cheap, affordable. So keep that in mind. All right. I just wanted to drop that for you. All right. So some final questions here before I let you guys go. Don't make me Google FUBAR. Yes, though. FUBAR. Okay. In the military, that means effed up beyond all recognition. So there you have it. Government plus politicians equal FUBAR. Effed up beyond all recognition. That goes across the board for both sides of the aisle, by the way. Anyway. All right, guys. Mike, any final closing comments?
No, I think it was a pretty good podcast, and hopefully, people got something value out of it. And yeah, just prepare. When he was talking about the radios, you can buy the simple little hand crank radio. Don't even have to have batteries, and keep yourself in the know on what's going on.
And you're good to go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by today, man. Really appreciate you. Love you guys. And as always, remember, keep your head on a swivel, keep your powder dry, and above all, God bless. We will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.